This kid has a super tiring night job, so when he strolls into school, all the popular kids are hanging out. But Aragi Kai just breezes past without saying a peep to anyone. When Mito Shuji says hi to him, Kai doesn't even try to be nice. That's why the girls say they don't even have to acknowledge people like him. For Kai, every chat feels like a total snooze. But once he hits the classroom, Arashi demands some respect and that everyone say hi to him. But Kai, he really couldn't care less about these folks. Arashi then yells at him super mad, asking if he's really not going to reply when people talk to him. When Arashi tried to shake Kai awake, he was taken aback by the main character's reaction. He let out a massive scream to wriggle his arm free, so Kai just gave his wrist a light squeeze to hush him up. Once Arashi broke free from Kai's hold, he thought twice and decided not to poke the bear further for the moment. The bully was feeling nervous. But when a girl told him to pipe down, Arashi switched back to being a jerk. I mean, it was just a girl. Mireille stepped in. She's from the disciplinary council and has some real authority, so the bully plopped down but with his feet propped up on the table. Obviously, what these students don't realize is that Aragi Kai's serious sleepiness is due to a secret night job. This criminal managed to slip past the cops, but not Kai's blade. That's his hidden gig. Naturally, Kai wasn't going to showcase his skills at school, but everything flipped when he felt something strange. His instincts shouted danger. A blue light flickered on the classroom floor, sending everyone into a panic when they noticed it. All the students in the room suddenly vanished. They ended up in what looked like an old castle. Everyone was out cold on the floor. Kai was the first to wake up, spotting stone walls, giant pillars for cover, and just one way out. Soon, the other students started coming too. Panic ensued, but Shuji stepped up and calmed everyone down. Kai felt a huge sense of relief having Shuji there to keep the class grounded. Then Arashi got up, insisting they had to hurry, and ordered his two buddies to follow him. Kai halted him, warning that he heard footsteps approaching from behind the door. Kai sensed a man and a woman getting closer. Just as he thought, the door swung open, and in walked a girl and an old man. They looked like they stepped right out of a medieval tale, decked out in strange, flowing outfits and capes. The girl greeted them, calling them impressive and hero candidates. The students were totally caught off guard. Kai quickly sized them up, noticing the old man had the build of a sword wielder and was clearly on alert. The girl, however, seemed pretty ordinary to Kai, even with a touch of muscle. She introduced herself as Leonora, the Archbishop of the Holy Country of Digorest. The man beside her was Gas, her knight protector. Arashi immediately chimed in, claiming he'd never heard of Digorest and questioning if she was joking with them. Leonora quickly assured him she wasn't. Shuji jumped in, explaining that they were all a bit on edge after suddenly landing here. So the girl started spilling everything. She explained that they had been summoned to a parallel world. They were humanity's last shot at taking down the evil demon king. Essentially, they were this world's hero candidates. Yeah, that was a real tough pill for the students to swallow. Gas immediately warned Arashi to watch his tone with the country's saint. Arashi barely flinched, which made Gas draw his sword. But Leonora quickly calmed him down. Then out of the blue, Arashi lunged at Gas. Kai couldn't believe how courageous he was. But before Arashi could even swing, Gas was faster. He slashed his sword, making a tiny cut on Arashi's head before anyone even realized what had happened. Leonora quickly apologized for Gas's aggressive move. She told everyone she would explain everything in detail, but first they needed to be quiet and listen. Leonora's chill vibe suddenly vanished, replaced by something much scarier. She revealed the harsh truth. The Demon King's invasion had humanity teetering on the edge of extinction. The country of Digorest was still fighting, but they just didn't have the strength to hold off the invasion any longer. Kai, meanwhile, thought this whole story felt pretty typical. Leonora pressed on, telling them they were humanity's last hope. The students immediately protested, saying they could never do this because they'd never fought before. Some of the girls were already in tears. Gas jumped in, saying, it might sound crazy, but they had to give it a shot. He dropped a bombshell. There was no turning back for them unless they took down the Demon King. This news hit the students like a ton of bricks, leaving them utterly speechless. Kai figured Gas only said that to spark some urgency in them. He understood that folks who lived peaceful lives couldn't just jump into killing. That sort of thing required talent and experience. Meanwhile, Arashi sprang to his feet. Blood still trickling down his head, he cursed them for trying to boss them around. Arashi then let them know he couldn't stand people just like them. Gas noticed that Arashi's spirit remained unshaken, making him wonder if this guy could actually be a valuable fighter. But then Gas gripped his sword, considering that Arashi might actually be too much hassle, and thought about taking him out. Before he could act, Leonora was already there, tending to Arashi's injury. Leonora clarified that the power she was using was known as the system, a blessing from their gods. She broke it down for them, saying it was similar to magic from their world. Kai picked up on her understanding of their culture. sparking his curiosity about whether she'd brought people from their world here before. Approaching Shuji, she explained that this system power was the exact reason she summoned them. As she raised her hands, Shuji's wrist began to glow. In a flash, a sword made of light materialized in his grip. She elaborated that they too could tap into the system's powers and unlock their innate skills of divine protection. Leonora confessed she had a somewhat selfish request. She had called them here, and now they couldn't just leave, so she asked them to lend her their abilities. Shuji pointed out that no matter how much strength they gained, they couldn't just start battling right away. She assured him they'd be trained and well prepared during that time. Shuji quickly took the lead. He told his classmates that while he knew they were terrified, they first needed information and safety. For now, he suggested they should hear what Leonora had to say, and everyone nodded in agreement. Seeing they were all ready to assist, Leonora began granting them their divine powers. Mare obtained telekinesis. Arashi got explosive abilities, Rina was gifted with fire powers, Yoshia received wind abilities, and all the other students were given various amazing skills. 2. Leonora then asked if anyone was left, and Kai raised his hand. She bestowed his powers upon him, and Kai immediately sensed his vision shifting. As soon as he finished receiving his new abilities, he discovered he could suddenly see Leonora's stats. Kai's eyes turned red in surprise. Leonora explained that he had received a super rare power called Judgment. This ability allowed him to see the stats and details of any target. Of course, Kai immediately tried it out on himself, and he could see all his own stats. Arashi experimented with his new powers, then teased Kai, saying he just got a new eye color. Kai observed how the other students were acting overly confident and full of themselves. He found it amusing since they knew nothing about this new world. Plus, their powers were temporary and could disappear at any moment. But Kai was completely relaxed. He knew he had plenty of other tricks up his sleeve, if you know what I mean. Once everyone had their powers, Leonora told them to take some time to rest. That evening, the hero candidates were led to their own quarters. But Kai wasn't about to just sit around. He stealthily slipped out of his window, eager to dig up more information. Outside, guards were patrolling and chatting. They were mocking how weak the hero candidates appeared. They couldn't fathom that these kids were chosen to defeat the Demon King. One guard grumbled that the Saints must know something they weren't privy to. Kai eavesdropped on their entire chat. He then activated his judgment power on one of the guards. He quickly discovered that the guy was only skilled in swordsmanship. With that intel, Kai quietly moved on, still on the lookout for more clues. Kai also found out that the city was heavily fortified. He wanted to access the inner castle, but the gates were locked tight with plenty of guards. Sneaking in now would be impossible, so he decided to take his time and come back later. Meanwhile, out in an open field, Rina was scouting for a good practice spot with her two buddies. They were ready to test out their brand new powers. The trio began conjuring their elements, observing them closely. Rina was eager to wrap her head around all this divine protection stuff. Kai was hiding in a bush, keeping an eye on them when he suddenly felt something unusual. The girls picked up on a strange noise coming from the bushes too. Then a massive, lizard-like creature burst out. It was clearly pulled in by the girls' magic. Kai quickly tapped into his judgment powers to check out the monster's stats and was blown away. The stats were off the charts. The creature let out a fierce roar and immediately took off after the girls. Kai quickly realized that even though the lizard was extremely strong and fierce, it only charged in one direction and wasn't the brightest. He threw a knife that pierced through the monster's tough hide. Just then, Rina tripped and fell. The beast caught up to her and was about to crush her, but it suddenly stopped in its tracks. The girls glanced around and spotted a knife sticking out of the monster's head, oozing blood. They wondered who their mysterious savior was, but decided it was best to get out of there. So they bolted. Kai didn't have a solid reason to save them, but his conscience wouldn't let him just stand by and watch. He realized that if monsters like this were roaming free, things could get pretty rough around here. He moved closer to the monster to retrieve his knife when suddenly he felt someone nearby. Kai ducked behind the massive creature's body, peeking around but saw nothing at all. He figured it was time to head back to his room and avoid any more trouble. Once he left, a shadowy figure stepped out from behind a wall, completely wrapped in a robe. You couldn't even see their face. This mysterious person then smashed the monster's head, popping its eyes right out. They mumbled to themselves, clearly let down by how weak and useless these hero candidates were. But then they spotted Kai, who smelled just like them. The next morning, Gas arrived with a massive surprise, the lifeless body of the monster. All the hero candidates were totally stunned to see something like that. Gas explained that the monster had been found dead the previous night near the royal capital. He went on to say that the Demon King had driven these creatures into a frenzy, making them hungry for human flesh. He warned the hero candidates that they'd be taking on monsters just like that one. Gas then turned to Steady. one of the researchers asking if he had noticed anything unusual about the monster. Steady confirmed that there were hints of sorcery at work, likely from a pretty powerful demon, maybe one of mid-grade or higher. He speculated that these demons could be scouting the new, weaker hero candidates. Meanwhile, Kai was curious if sorcery was the same thing as magic. It was a new term he'd just heard from the researcher. Shuji chimed in, asking if that meant a demon was actually controlling the monster. Steady clarified that strong demons could absolutely dominate weaker creatures through servitude spells. Gas then dragged Steady away. Even though he clearly wanted to share more details, Kai figured that Steady could be a vital resource for gathering information. He really needed him. Then it hit Kai. Those eyes he sensed last night belonged to a demon. The demon was incredibly skilled too, since Kai had barely noticed them. A shiver ran down his spine as he thought the demon might still be lingering nearby, perhaps even watching them right now. Suddenly, he felt a pair of eyes on him. Arashi bluntly told Gaia that they couldn't leave home without taking down the demon first, and he absolutely wasn't planning on sticking around in this world forever. The other students quickly nodded in agreement. Kai figured it was probably for the best that everyone realized the real stakes soon. Just then, Leonora walked in, telling them not to panic. They just didn't know how to harness their powers yet, that's all. A bit of training was all they needed. Since they came from another world, their growth rate would be way different from the locals. A week zoomed by, packed with the students fully immersed in training. Kai was busy hitting the books in the library. He could now read and comprehend every letter of the new language. Honestly, he still found it strange they could even chat with each other. His judgment powers weren't particularly useful for fighting, so he was left out of battle training, but at least he had access to the library. He couldn't find much reading material on their history, culture, or even demons. The top 5 students were Narumi, the wind controller, Arashi with his explosive powers, Kaki with telekinesis, Hashimoto who could manipulate land, and Reina who commanded fire. But there was another student whose power was skyrocketing at an astonishing rate, Shuji. He quickly became stronger than even his own sword instructors. Kai employed his judgment skill and noticed that Shuji's stats were soaring above B grade, a massive leap from being below D grade just a week prior. Suddenly, 2 guys approached Kai and started teasing him. Kai noticed that others were also looking down at him now. It was clear that these new abilities were giving them a big head. One of the boys attempted to shove Kai, but Kai smoothly flipped him onto the ground instead. Just then, Leonora and Gaz arrived at the training area. Leonora announced that everybody had leveled up faster than she thought, so they were speeding things up. Narumi asked if this meant they would face the Demon King, but Leonora shook her head. For now, they would just practice battling monsters. Everyone looked a little anxious hearing that. The next day, Gas and Leonora took all the hero candidates deep into a forest. Gas explained that they were there for combat drills. This place was loaded with powerful creatures, so they couldn't stick together as one large group. Because of this, they would split into teams of 2 or 3. As soon as this was announced, everyone quickly formed their own groups, leaving only Kai and Kanaki without a team. They had no choice but to team up. Kai thought Kaki seemed quite confident and a bit indifferent, plus super proud. She even caught him glancing at her. At that moment, Leonora declared that since this was a special event, the team that defeated the most monsters would earn a surprise reward. Shortly after, the combat drills officially kicked off. As they set off, Kaki told Kai that her powers were way cooler than anyone else's, so she didn't need his help at all. She just instructed him not to get in her way. Kai simply agreed, stating he'd leave everything to her. Kaki looked surprised, asking if he had no pride. Right then, Kai sensed 4 hidden creatures lurking nearby. Suddenly, one of the monsters lunged at them and Kaki instantly activated her ability. Her power called domination allowed her to impose her will onto any target. She simply commanded the goblin to bow, and it did exactly that. A few minutes later, Kaki appeared really worn out. She explained that using her powers for too long drained her mana, making her feel exhausted. Kai urged her to finish off the goblin, especially since another monster was about to strike, but Kaki hesitated, saying the monster looked a bit too human to her. Kai brought her back to reality, reminding her it was still a monster that just tried to attack them. He picked up a stone, thinking Kaki was just a naive student from Japan, too accustomed to a peaceful life. He was fiddling with the stone when out of the blue, the other 3 goblins appeared. Kaki commanded the goblins to bow, then snapped at Kai to help instead of just standing there. Kai shot back, reminding her that she was the one who told him not to get involved. She let out a sigh, and then ordered the goblins to twist their own necks. And just like that, they were dead. Kai was quite shocked seeing her bossing them around like that. She explained that the tougher the command, the trickier it was to pull off. The sight of the dead goblins grossed her out, but Kai shared some wisdom to calm her down. She wondered how he remained so chill, especially without any powers. Kai simply told her not to stress, saying staying calm was his specialty. He then asked if she wanted to bail, thinking she might be scared. But of course, she totally shot him down, full of pride. Kai realized she was just trying to act tough, but he had to admit she wasn't half bad after all. Meanwhile, Narumi and Hashimoto were fleeing from a seriously tough monster. Running wasn't really a viable option, so they decided to team up and fight. They combined their wind and rock powers, smashing the monster with a massive boulder, but it barely even fazed the creature. They were completely stuck, unsure of what to do next. Kaki was actually thinking about her own world. She truly wanted to return and show her grandpa how much she'd grown, repaying him for raising her. Kai snapped her out of it, asking if she still wanted to push on, warning that they could easily get lost out there. They started bickering back and forth. Kenzaki couldn't help but wonder why Kai was such a puzzling mystery. While they were joking around, a loud noise suddenly echoed. Kaki instantly recognized it was Hashimoto. Kai asked what they should do, and Kaki quickly replied that they obviously had to help over there. The monster had just thrown Hashimoto quite a distance, leaving her hurt and bleeding. Hashimoto shouted for Narumi to run, but it was already too late. The monster was ready to attack him next. Kaki swiftly used her powers, commanding the monster to stop moving. Narumi thanked her, but Kaki warned that the creature was way too powerful and wouldn't stay frozen for much longer. Kai asked Narumi if Hashimoto was still alive. Narumi confirmed she was, but she was in really bad shape. Kai urged Narumi to scoop up Hashimoto and get out of there quickly. Narumi was really hesitant to leave, but seeing Hashimoto's terrible condition, he had no choice. As Narumi took off, Kai tapped into his own powers to take a peek at the monster's stats, and he was pretty stunned by how high they were, especially its defense. Kai instantly realized that his attacks wouldn't even make a dent in this creature. He also noted it was some sort of mutant, and wondered exactly what it was. Kaki yelled that she couldn't hold it back any longer. Kai reassured her that she had bought them enough time, and now it was time for them to run as well. She agreed, seeing how dire the situation was, but her legs just wouldn't budge. She had exhausted all her energy holding the monster back. Seeing how serious things had gotten, Kai quickly pulled out a smoke grenade and activated it. This gave him just the cover he needed to scoop up Kanaki and vanish into hiding. She asked what the smoke was for. Kai explained it was a smoke grenade he had cooked up during their training sessions. Although he was actually fibbing a bit, Kai had packed some gear with him even before he arrived here. Since he didn't have much, he aimed to save it and not waste it. It was just basic assassin equipment. Kaki then apologized. She was the one who pushed for them to help, and now she ended up needing rescuing herself. Kai cut her off, telling her not to say sorry, but to instead thank him. And just like that, they started bickering again. She thought they should make a run for it, but he quickly disagreed. Just then, Shuji and the others showed up. Without a moment's hesitation, he charged at the bear for hurting his friends. Shuji moved swiftly, landing a hit that hurt the monster's hand. Rina jumped into the mix, unleashing her fire powers. The flames didn't do a ton of damage, but they did help slow the monster down. Everyone then united in their assault on the monster once more. All the while, someone was quietly observing them from a distance. It turned out to be a seasoned assassin demon named Delphus, who smirked, muttering that the armored monster stood no chance against these hero candidates due to their rapid growth. Delphus particularly enjoyed how composed they were, especially Shuji. This was supposed to be just a scouting mission, but Delphus decided it was time for a change of plans. He planned to eliminate them all right there, but while he was scheming, Shuji and the others managed to take down the monster. Delphus grinned, ready to strike, but before he could make his move, a dagger pressed against his neck. It was Kai. Deluz was totally taken aback, wondering how he had gotten caught like that. Frantic Delus couldn't figure out how Kai had gotten behind him so fast. He desperately needed to find a way out, but Kai was quicker, slicing his legs and tossing him hard onto the ground. Kai told him to stay quiet. He didn't want Shuji and the others to spot them. He offered a deal, saying if Delphus answered his questions, he'd let him go. Delphus hesitated to comply, but Kai clearly had the upper hand. Kai then asked if Delphus was the one who had been spying on him the other night. He explained that he had known they were being watched all along. His plan was to allow Shuji and the others to fight, luring out the observer. Kai interrupted him, stating he needed info since they were new to this world, and he insisted Delphus had to answer whatever he asked. Delphus simply smirked and refused to cooperate, so Kai slashed his hands too, repeating that cooperation would be much simpler. Delphus warned him not to underestimate him. He then gulped down some hidden poison, dying right there. Kai realized then that the Demon King's army would be a serious challenge to face. Suddenly, Kaki rushed over, utterly shocked to see the lifeless body. Kai asked how long she had been watching. She replied since he had been lying on the ground. Kai explained that the dead demon was an assassin from the Demon King's army. He added that the monster they fought earlier was merely a pawn, and even the first lizard monster was his doing. Kaki became a tad frightened, realizing the Demon King was actively trying to eliminate the hero candidates. She asked how Kai had noticed the assassin when no one else had. Kai figured there was no reason to keep his secret any longer. He admitted that his family was in the assassination game, so he could just sense someone else from the same profession. Kaki was completely taken aback by this revelation. Kai told her that it was her choice whether or not to believe him. He also requested that she keep the dead body a secret, especially since the hero candidates were already on edge due to Hashimoto's condition. She agreed and then remarked that she hadn't realized he cared about them so much. Kai responded that it was simply because they weren't accustomed to battling like he was. Hashimoto was in rough shape, sprawled out on the floor, badly injured. All the hero candidates huddled around her. A student named Hano stepped up using her healing abilities to help Hashimoto. Everyone looked on in awe at what she could do. Hano then shared the uplifting news. Hashimoto would be on the mend in about an hour. Meanwhile, the hero candidates were busy cheering on Shuji for taking down the monster earlier. Just then, Leonora and Gas strolled in casually, and the candidates immediately grilled them about where they had been and why they hadn't offered assistance. Gas quickly clarified that he had been observing them the whole time. He explained that it wouldn't be very effective if he were to save them every time they were in trouble. Shuji shot back, highlighting how serious Hashimoto's injuries were and that she could have died, but Gas wasn't having it, stating that risking one's life was a natural part of military training. He laid it out plainly. This was the type of battle they would encounter, so they needed to quit whining. Shuji wasn't finished questioning how an armored monster appeared when they were told the area only contained weaker foes. Leonora chimed in, suggesting it was due to the demon assassin since armored monsters weren't supposed to be around. Unbeknownst to her, Kai had already dealt with the assassin, prompting Gas and Leonora to step up their defenses. Leonora wasn't done being stern, insisting they needed to ramp up their training substantially. She bluntly stated that at their current abilities, they would all just perish. This sent a chill down everyone's spine. Shuji tried to reason with her, but she insisted that growing stronger was the only route to survival. Arashi wasn't on board with that. He disliked being bossed around and stepped forward to confront Leonora, but Gaia intervened. He made it clear that they were merely Leonora's pawns and shouldn't think they could disobey her instructions. Tensions were rising. Shuji quickly intervened to calm Arashi, knowing they really had no choice but to comply. Gas seemed to be impressed by Shuji. He reassured the candidates not to worry, calling them essential pieces for the country and promising no harm would come as long as they followed orders. Arashi still wasn't convinced. He unleashed his explosive energy towards Gas, but Gas dodged it effortlessly. He then struck Arashi down hard, leaving him on the ground with a harsh reminder about their weaknesses and how things were only going to get tougher. Gas and Leonora exited. Arashi slowly rose, bloodied but determined, swearing revenge on Gas. The next day, their training took an unexpected twist when Steady, the researcher, took the helm. After a brief recap of the previous day, Steady dropped a surprising announcement. They were going to be battling monsters at his research facility. He explained that the facility was packed with all kinds of monsters that he was basically breeding for his experiments. Soon, the drill began, forcing the hero candidates to confront these monsters. Gas noticed something unexpected. Everyone surprisingly remained calm despite the high-stress environment. Shuji attempted to intervene, telling Steady that the monsters were too powerful for the candidates. But Steady stood firm. He explained that Leonora had insisted he be very strict, so he couldn't and wouldn't lighten the training. Steady added that with their peers, losing wasn't really an option to begin with. He emphasized that their determination was what mattered most. Shuji wondered if that would actually make a significant difference. Steady elaborated that if they trained correctly, they could enhance their powers and even unlock new abilities. Gas then chimed in, telling Shuji he could sense a new power blooming within him, thanks to his judgment ability. Shuji was completely taken aback. He immediately asked Steady if he could give it a try. Steady was excited to witness the power firsthand, so he agreed. Shuji unleashed his newfound power. In an instant, he cleanly severed the monster's hand and head. Gas instantly realized that Shuji wouldn't struggle with armored monsters anymore. He even wondered if his own judgment powers had become stronger. Guy noticed that Arashi had also acquired a new ability, but he chose to keep it a secret. That same night, Arashi was plotting dark plans. He vowed to eliminate Gas-restrain Leonora and make her spill the beans on how to get back to their world. A bunch of other candidates joined him, eager to make their getaway from this place. Arashi walked up to Narumi knowing he was fed up with this world too, and asked him to hop on board for a better shot at success. Narumi hesitated at first, but finally agreed to team up. The next day, Guy found Shuji working hard on his training. Shuji confessed he still felt weak and craved more power. Guy responded, saying Shuji's current strength was enough to take down half the knights in this world, but Shuji wasn't content. He insisted it wasn't sufficient to defeat Gaius and safeguard everyone. Guy then asked Shuji what he thought about Leonora and Gas. Shuji responded that he recognized they were just pieces in a bigger game, but he also had faith that they wouldn't genuinely harm them. Guy pressed on, asking if Shuji was ready to risk his life until the Demon King was defeated. Shuji confirmed his determination. He declared he would be the one to battle, becoming the national hero and vanquishing the Demon King. In return, he'd do his best to negotiate for the safety of everyone else. Guy pondered whether Leonora would even allow such a thing. Just then, Leonora and Gas strolled in. Leonora declared that Steady would take charge of the candidates' training while she was away. Steady gladly accepted, and the two leaders took off. Later on their journey, Gas wondered if Leonora had made the right call. She calmly asked why he felt that way. Gas told her to quit joking around and get straight to the point. He revealed Arashi was plotting something, and Leonora agreed, sensing a rebellion was simmering. Gas then inquired about her next steps. Leonora replied she was simply curious to see what they would do next. Gas worried that a rebellion from hero candidates with powers could spell doom, but Leonora remained unbothered, knowing they could never overpower her. She suggested they set up a strict hierarchy to squash the rebellion and completely eliminate their threat. Leonora also mentioned she noticed other suspicious activities, but decided to brush them off for the time being. Later that night, Kai was fighting a monster. He took it down just like he had on his first night. It took him a mere 13 seconds. When Kai activated his judgment power on himself, he realized he had leveled up. Suddenly, a new monster charged at him, but this one was tough as nails. His blades couldn't even leave a scratch. This was the ideal moment to test his latest skill. He activated his new power, which could identify a target's weak point. Once he spotted it, he dispatched the monster in a blink. It was a decent skill, but Kai recognized he needed even more strength to make it in this world. He needed to become a whole lot tougher. More monsters kept coming, but he dispatched them way too easily. He realized he needed a stronger opponent to truly evaluate his new abilities. Then he heard some footsteps. He spotted Kaki and asked what she was doing out at such a late hour. She explained she was searching for him because he was missing from the dorms. Kai urged her to head back, warning that the forest was too risky at night. He was totally accustomed to night fights, but Kaki not so much. She interrupted him and insisted on knowing why he was even there. Kai explained he was just testing out his new powers. Kaki inquired about his new power, but Kai just teased her. That's when she confessed she was genuinely concerned about him. Taken aback, she immediately turned crimson and started stuttering excuses. Suddenly, while they were chatting, they noticed smoke rising in the distance. A fire. Their dorm was going up in flames. They both sprinted back, only to find other candidates already battling monsters. Narumi looked super relieved to see them. He explained he had woken up to find fire and monsters everywhere. Kai immediately concluded it was a human attack, and the mastermind had to be lurking nearby. Kai instructed them to hunt down and capture whoever was behind this. Just then, Steady showed up on the rooftop, confirming their suspicions were spot on. Kai connected the dots on how the monsters appeared. It all clicked now. Steady revealed these were all monsters from his lab. He'd even given them special medicine to boost their strength because they were too weak previously. Kai demanded to know his purpose and why he would gain anything from killing candidates. Steady explained it was a direct demand from his higher-ups. He was ordered to wipe out all the candidates, even if it meant jeopardizing his job. He grinned, claiming he had nothing personal against them, but sadly, he had to eliminate them all. They asked if Leonora had commanded this. Steady quickly denied it, saying, "Of course not. That vixen wouldn't order this. It was the Demon King's command. He was the spy for the Demon King." Steady revealed that if he performed well, he could land a research spot there. Kai confronted him, asking whether he had sunk so far into darkness that studying monsters was all that mattered now. Steady simply responded that monsters were beyond human comprehension. Steady commanded his monsters to launch an attack. Kaki tried to use her powers to stop them, but it was pointless. They quickly shattered her spell and charged toward her. Kai jumped in to save her, which really thrilled Steady. He was astonished by Kai's strength. Kai then continued battling, taking down more monsters. Kai managed to defeat nearly a dozen monsters. Steady grew enraged, especially since Kai didn't even start with very strong powers. Kai activated his judgment power on Steady and discovered that all his stats were weak. But the standout detail was that Steady had domination powers just like Kaki, but even more powerful. That's why Kaki's spell had failed. Steady was totally taken aback. He then resorted to something he really didn't want to, but he had no choice. He warned Kai that he would soon find out what it was. Kai sprang into action, eager not to waste a second, but all of a sudden, a massive red dragon appeared, breathing fire right at him. Steady's huge secret was out. A giant red dragon. This monster immediately started hurling massive boulders their way. Kai quickly instructed Narumi to grab Kaki and make a run for it, warning that another attack was about to strike. Kai used his power again, locating the dragon's weak point, its neck. He attempted to strike, but his power wasn't enough for a solid hit. Just then, Arashi appeared, immediately launching an attack at the dragon. He began boasting about his strength, but the dragon quickly counterattacked. Kai told Arashi they needed to team up to take down the beast. Arashi was confused about why he'd need help, so Kai explained that he could pinpoint the weak spots, but didn't have the strength to finish it. Arashi stubbornly claimed he didn't need a newbie's help, but there was no time to argue, as the dragon attacked once more. The dragon blasted fire at Arashi again, finally convincing him to cooperate with Kai. Kai quickly detailed the weak spot, a specific scale on the dragon's neck. The plan was straightforward. Kai would draw the monster's attention, and Arashi would aim for that precise spot. Steady commanded the dragon to eliminate them both. The gigantic creature lunged forward, but Kai caught its attention. Arashi took advantage of the moment, striking the weak point, and the dragon tumbled to the ground. With the dragon defeated, Kai mocked Steady, asking if he had any more surprises. Steady claimed he still had more monsters, but then found out Shuji and the others had already taken care of them all. Steady tried to flee, but Narumi quickly caught him. Kai demanded Steady reveal everything. Being a coward, Steady agreed immediately. But before he could utter a word, his body turned purple and he perished. He had been cursed to die if he attempted to share any information. The following day, the candidates confronted Leonora as soon as she returned, since she was the one who had placed Steady in charge. She apologized, explaining that she never imagined such a weak demon tamer could cause so much chaos. The candidates were stunned to learn she had known Steady was a demon tamer all along. They questioned why she allowed a demon tamer to be so close if she was aware. Leonora defended her actions, reminding them she had warned them that their training would be intense, and this was merely a part of it. Gas chimed in, accusing them of being too careless to notice a fire in the dark. Leonora then announced their next destination, the royal capital. The trip to the royal capital was for a public parade where the hero candidates would be presented as the main attractions. That evening, they all set out for the capital and camped in a field once night came. While dining, Arashi informed his followers that the 30 soldiers accompanying them weren't very strong, declaring that it was time to set their plan in motion. He was confident they could easily overpower the soldiers. He then instructed one of his followers to summon Narumi and his group to their location. Kai overheard Arashi's speech. He agreed there weren't many soldiers, but figured it was because Gas and Leonora were confident they could handle any threats themselves. Kai approached Shuji, asking if they could have a chat. Later that evening, Arashi and Narumi secretly met in the nearby woods. Just as they were about to ambush the soldiers, Shuji and the other candidates arrived, blocking their way. Shuji revealed he was aware of Arashi's plan to eliminate Leonora and Gas, which completely floored Arashi. How did his secret slip out? The group attempted to talk some sense into Arashi, suggesting there must be a better way than just going for murder. Arashi fired back, asking Shuji if chatting was all he did, demanding to know what his actual plan was. Shuji replied he'd become a pawn, defeat the Demon King, and ensure everyone's safety in exchange. But Arashi wasn't buying it. He instructed Shuji to step aside, but Shuji and the others stood their ground. With no common ground to stand on, a brawl erupted. Suddenly, 2 soldiers entered, telling them to get some rest for their early journey the next day. Arashi just walked away, fed up with what he considered their weakness, saying there was no use in talking any further. The following day, everyone showed up at the royal capital. The place was bustling with excitement due to a grand ceremony. The street crowds were thrilled to see the hero candidates, showing a lot of faith in them. Inside the castle, Holy Knight Ryuz welcomed them, suggesting they rest first. All the candidates were ecstatic about the royal treatment. Cozy beds, steaming hot baths, and fantastic food. However, Kai was eager to learn more, but the castle was teeming with guards. He then spotted Ryuz, the knight who had shown them around. Ryuz was telling his soldiers about how strong the candidates were, way stronger than typical kids their age. A soldier expressed concern that having the hero candidates in the capital could definitely provoke the demons. Ryuz reassured them not to stress, insisting the candidates were tough enough to handle anything. Still full of questions, Kai decided to explore the town. That evening, he wandered into a pub ordering some ale and snacks. The patrons were talking about the hero candidates, saying they just looked like ordinary kids. Kai also noticed that people seemed more fearful of the church than the king or nobles. He asked the bartender for more details. Kai mentioned he was new in town and needed insight, so the bartender filled him in about the Demon King. He explained how the Demon King was attacking the kingdom and could even deceive humans with his tremendous power. The bartender also mentioned how the Demon King's followers had blown up a noble's estate just days earlier. Kai left the pub thinking that having the candidates in the capital was probably not the smartest move. Then Kaki unexpectedly found him. Clearly anxious, she explained she was just gathering intel since they were in unfamiliar territory. Kaki was super concerned and offered to lend a hand. Kai initially declined, which she was not thrilled about. After some back and forth, he finally agreed to let her accompany him. He instructed her to gather information specifically about the royal capital. So Kenzaki set off to do her part, and Kai did the same. But unbeknownst to them, someone had been eavesdropping on their entire conversation. A man smirked as he observed Kaki walk away. Kai eventually returned to his room after a long, unproductive search. He didn't uncover anything useful, but he did realize a new enemy was lurking out there. Suddenly, he heard noises from the hallway and stepped out to find the other candidates gathered there. When Kai inquired about what was going on, he discovered Kaki was missing. No one had even noticed Kai's absence either, since he had a room all to himself. But when they asked if he knew anything, he just shook his head. Shuji speculated that Kaki wasn't in the castle. With dawn approaching, they needed to head out and search for her. Everyone split up to search, and Kai eventually noticed her student ID lying on the street. The moment he picked it up, 4 masked figures attacked him, but Kai was lightning fast, taking down 3 of them in an instant. He then confronted the last guy, questioning who they were and pointing out how clumsy they appeared. The 4th spy was completely frozen in surprise, so Kai demanded he spill all he knew. Meanwhile, in what looked like some sort of castle, Kaki was tied up. 2 spies were questioning her relentlessly, but she remained completely silent. They kept pushing, trying to get info about the hero candidates. Seeing she wouldn't cooperate, one of the spies tore off her shirt. What they didn't realize was that Kai was already inside watching them. He used his judgment and quickly figured out these guys were actually pretty weak. Kai couldn't believe such weaklings had managed to capture her. He wasted no time and swiftly took them both out. Kaki, now exposed, felt incredibly embarrassed to be seen by him like that. Kai unlocked her chains, and just as they were about to make their getaway, he felt someone rushing toward them. It was Reigns, the Holy Knight. He sprang into action, but both Kai and Kaki managed to dodge. Reigns just grinned, stating that he absolutely had to take them out. Reigns wasn't just any Holy Knight. He was also a general in the Demon King's army. Kai muttered that their country was pretty much doomed, spotting foes even in the capital. Using his instincts, Kai recognized that Reigns was no slouch. Reigns was a real jack of all trades. They clashed again and Kai narrowly avoided his sword, but then Reigns unleashed a blast of fire magic, totally catching Kai off guard. Somehow Kai dodged that, too. Reigns then set his sword ablaze, confidently declaring that it was game over for Kai. But Kai was quicker, whipping out his gun and shooting Reigns right in the head. Reigns instantly fell lifeless. Kai hated using his gun for moments like this, especially with limited ammo, but he had no other option. He realized he needed to really master close combat if he wanted to stay alive in this world. Kaki was stunned to see Kai with a gun. She admitted it was pretty unnerving to know that someone in their class carried one. Kai simply explained that it was standard gear for an assassin. She thanked him, and then he asked why she hadn't used her domination power. Kaki replied that once her hands were bound, her powers just wouldn't work. As they left, she pointed out that the attackers were targeting their class, but Kai was already aware. He'd received the information from the 4th cult member he had caught earlier. That guy spilled all the beans. The cult was instructed to eliminate all hero candidates and even pinpointed Kaki's location. Their plan was to use Kaki as leverage while going after the others. But there was a significant mystery. Kai hadn't succumbed to the death curse. Unlike Steady, this could only mean one thing. A demon wasn't behind this attack. Instead, it was humans plotting against them. As morning approached, Shuji finally found them, relieved to see Kaki safe. Kai quickly briefed him on the Demon King's cult and how humans were turning against humanity. The worst part was that unlike monsters, they couldn't easily tell which humans were the foes. This new threat meant everyone had to be super cautious. They decided against informing Leonora, knowing she'd just tell them to sort it out themselves. So they made a plan, gather all the candidates and figure out what to do next. Suddenly, smoke erupted around them, and more cult members emerged surrounding them. Everyone prepared for a fight. It wasn't just them either. All the other hero candidate groups were also cornered by these attackers. Kai scanned the surroundings, noting 6 enemies. Their stats were lower than Rainey's, but they were still formidable. The 6 men charged at them. Kaki used her powers to freeze them in place, and Kai wasted no time as he struck their heads with sharp knives for instant kills. Shuji felt a wave of anxiety, seeing them eliminate humans so effortlessly. He tried to protest, but Kai quickly interrupted him. "There are enemies," Kai asserted. Just then, a remaining cult member lunged at Shuji, who attempted to reason with him, but the cultist simply announced he was loyal to his master. Kaki was about to use her powers again, but Kai stopped her. He wanted Shuji to finish this guy off. Shuji broke the man's sword and urged him to surrender if he wanted to survive, but the cultist stubbornly refused to back down and attacked Shuji, injuring his hand. Shuji retaliated with a slash to the man's body. The cultist whimpered, and Shuji wanted to just leave him there to die, but Kai was firm. "Eliminate him now or he'll be a threat later." Shuji hesitated, but in the end, he did exactly as Kai commanded. Meanwhile, Arashi and his crew had also dealt with all their attackers. Arashi ruthlessly finished off the last man with his power. But Rina's group was struggling to eliminate humans, and the other girls were getting hurt. Suddenly, Leonora appeared on the scene, asking if she should give them a passing grade. The cultists glowered at her even more. She calmly replied, "You're my candidates. So of course I'd come help when you're in danger." One of the men scoffed. "You don't even have your knight. How will you do anything?" Leonora just mocked them, calling them a bunch of amateurs lured by the Demon King. She didn't even view them as real foes. All the men charged at her all at once, but Leonora simply used her domination power, sticking them all to the ground. They couldn't move a muscle. Rina observed that her powers were just like Kinzaki's. "Don't even compare my skill to that," Leonora shot back. "My domination is far superior in every single way, from reach to pure power." Rina then asked why she even bothered saving them. Leonora gave a smirk. "I did say I might give you a passing grade, didn't I?" The guys hurriedly thanked her for having their backs. One even grabbed onto her dress, begging her not to forget them and to set them free. Leonora simply looked down and apologized to him for still being alive. After that, she unleashed her domination power over all the candidates. Her command was straightforward: eliminate the men sprawled on the floor. The candidates' bodies moved independently, completely against their wishes, as they carried out the horrific act on the defenseless men. This showcased the true might of Leonora. Kai and Kaki stood at a distance, taking in the terrifying scene. Kaki was utterly shocked. She couldn't believe Leonora could manipulate so many people simultaneously. Her range and strength were undeniably on an entirely different level. 12 hours post-attack, all the candidates reconvened in the hall. Many were in really rough shape, utterly stunned by everything that had happened. Narumi vowed he wouldn't let Leonora escape punishment, not after she forced the candidates to kill against their will. Shuji felt guilty for not arriving sooner, but Kai quickly explained it wouldn't have made a difference. None of them were strong enough to stand up to Leonora at this moment. He knew for certain that with the demon army's general out of the way, they couldn't make any moves for a while. Kai then asked Kaki to join him. She was curious why, and he explained he needed her help to come up with a way to combat Leonora's domination magic. He needed someone with similar abilities to figure it out. Then he requested Kaki to use her domination powers on him. Hearing this, Kaki turned bright red and got flustered. The very next day after removing the cult members, the kingdom held a grand parade. It was all in honor of the hero candidates' summoning. This parade stood as proof that the candidates had truly showcased their strength against the Demon King's cult. The folks of the royal capital welcomed them warmly. When everyone gathered, Leonora told them she wanted them to head back to Temple City Alpha. Kai quickly informed the others that Alpha was the city where they were first summoned. He suspected Leonora had control over it. Kai asked Leonora if she wouldn't be joining them. She replied that she still had some tasks to finish, so she would leave them in Gas's hands instead. Rina chimed in saying they wished to return, but their dorms had burned down. Rina noticed one of the girls looking pale and unable to answer questions. She was just too frightened of Leonora. With a smirk, Leonora left, and all the candidates felt a strong resentment towards her. Shortly after, Gas led all the candidates toward their next destination. That night, they set up camp, and Arashi, along with the rest, ventured into the forest once again. Kaki asked Kai if they were really going for it tonight. Kai responded that with Leonora absent and the soldiers being weak, it was the perfect time to take down Gas. Kai figured there was no reason to hold back under these circumstances. He'd just enjoy the show. Meanwhile, Narumi guided Gas deep into the woods. He claimed to have spotted a giant monster. Gas fell right into their trap. The path led to the royal capital, and a monster so near was a significant threat. Suddenly, Arashi attacked Gas from behind with everything he had. Gas was completely unprepared, took the hit, and started bleeding. Arashi then told him that even his most powerful attacks still couldn't finish him off. Gas was barely standing when he suddenly stepped right onto a landmine. Boom! It detonated, sending him staggering backward. Arashi just smirked, revealing that the whole thing was a trap specifically set for Gas. He used his mana to shield himself, but still ended up seriously injured. Gas glared at Arashi, expressing his real disappointment. "I didn't see you ambushing me like this," he remarked. Just then, Arashi's entire team surrounded the old man. Realizing how dire his situation was, Gas shot off a bright signal into the sky like a firework. From a distance, Kaki and Kai spotted the signal. "Two," Kai scoffed. "Looks like Arashi really messed this up." That bright ball was a distress signal, and soldiers quickly noticed it rushing toward the site, but they never made it. Kai stepped in their way and took down each and every one of them. Meanwhile, Gas was being completely overwhelmed by the other candidates. He could scarcely keep up with their united powers. Before long, he lost an arm, his body drenched in blood. Arashi actually praised him. "You're pretty tough for an old dude," he mentioned. Narumi then chimed in about the distress signal, thinking Gas was simply trying to stall for time. But Gas shot back. "That's not necessary anymore." Just then, Leonora strolled in, sporting a laid-back smile. "Looks like Gas is really in a tight spot now," she noted. The other candidates were taken aback by Leonora's appearance. Meanwhile, Shuji Reina and a few other candidates noticed Kaki using her domination power to tie up a bunch of soldiers. She claimed she was just following orders, but they didn't buy it. Everyone knew Kaki was not one to follow anyone. Then Kai showed up. "She's listening to my orders," he proclaimed. Shuji was completely stunned, once again realizing Kai was the one who dealt with all the guards. Kai then explained that since Arashi was busy battling Gas, he decided to take care of the guards by himself. Shuji and the others finally got the full picture. Shuji asked Kai if he had teamed up with Arashi. Kai simply said he was just doing what he felt like doing. Then Kai suggested that Shuji should focus on looking for Arashi instead of bothering him. Shuji and the rest hurried off to find Arashi and the others. Leonora then informed Gas that he was losing in this fight. Gas accepted that, acknowledging he couldn't battle against old age forever. Arashi then stepped forward, asserting that after everything, he wasn't about to just run away with his tail between his legs. One of the candidates asked Leonora if she was the one controlling them. Leonora clarified that certain conditions had to be just perfect. She mentioned that her control wasn't as effective if someone had a significant mana pool, making it tougher to resist. However, for anyone overly reliant on raw power and not used to managing their mana, it was super easy for her to take over. Arashi accused her of being a coward, daring her to fight them head-on. Leonora merely smiled. "I'll take care of you all myself," she stated confidently. Leonora then added, "I'll snap your fangs." Arashi lunged at her immediately, but Leonora was quicker. She conjured a massive boulder, sending him flying backward. After that, she effortlessly manipulated other elements like fire, water, and air to take down the rest of the candidates. Narumi swooped in, grabbing Arashi and taking to the skies. Just then, Shuji arrived with the other candidates. He told Arashi to stop questioning what he hoped to gain from all this fighting. Arashi, defiant, told Shuji to try and stop him by force, proclaiming he couldn't stand Shuji's peaceful ways. Shuji then faced the others, asking if they felt the same. Rina quickly stepped forward, announcing her complete support for Arashi. Meanwhile, Leonora just laughed, making fun of them for still arguing among themselves. Leonora pointed out that they were practically starting a rebellion right then and there. She then asked if they truly expected her forgiveness even if they halted the fight right now. Before anyone could respond, she summoned a massive cyclone, injuring everyone close by. Shuji tensed up seeing everyone hurt, but Arashi quickly told him to relax. He explained that if Shuji genuinely wanted to protect them, he needed to go all in, or everyone would be wiped out. Shuji finally understood the urgency. There was no other option. He geared up for battle, as did Rina and the rest of the candidates. Leonora declared she would show them just how wide the gap was between their powers and hers. Not far from the action, Kaki asked Kai what their next move should be. Kai replied that they should wait until Leonora started using her magic to control the others, and then he would jump in. Until that moment, Kai said they needed to have faith in the other candidates. The candidates were fired up and ready to take on Leonora. Even Gas, despite feeling weak, managed to struggle to his feet, declaring he still wanted to fight alongside her. Leonora then fully healed all his wounds, making him stronger than ever and ready for action. The candidates felt a fresh wave of fear. They had worked so hard to corner Gas, and now he was back at full power. Rina quickly reminded them that their numbers had grown too, so they still had a fighting chance. Leonora then confidently told them they could attack her whenever they wanted. She explained that this entire battle was merely a test. If they couldn't beat her, then they definitely weren't hero material. Soon after, the fight kicked off. Gas quickly discovered how difficult it was to take on Shuji, wielding his magic sword. Leonora blasted Shuji with water magic, but Rina was able to cancel out most of it. Still, Shuji ended up getting hurt. The other candidates launched their own assaults at Leonora, but none of their attempts even came close to landing a hit on her. Meanwhile, Kai remained hidden in the shadows, using his judgment ability to check Leonora's stats. He noticed that even though she was an ultra-powerful magician, her defense was surprisingly weak. Just one solid physical strike could take her down, but Gas was a major hurdle. Arashi told Shuji to let him handle Gas and go after Leonora. Shuji, however, had his own problem. His magic attacks couldn't touch her either. A candidate tossed Shuji a steel sword, and Leonora grinned, commenting that he finally looked prepared for a real showdown. The other candidates couldn't assist Shuji, since their powers had no effect on Leonora. They also couldn't help Arashi, who was engaged in close-quarters combat. Arashi was holding his own against Gas, because although Gas had healed, his stamina was still low. Plus, Arashi couldn't unleash his full explosive potential, so it was an evenly matched battle. Leonora continually fired ranged attacks at Shuji, making it impossible for him to close the gap with his sword. Shuji knew there had to be a way to bridge the distance and take her down, but he just couldn't figure it out. Leonora merely smirked, saying she expected nothing less from Shuji, as very few people in the entire country could dodge her shots like he did. The battle was still very much one-sided. Shuji just couldn't get close to her. He couldn't even count on the other candidates for help. Shuji charged in at full speed, completely shutting down her wind attacks. Leonora then hit him with ground and fire spells. but he dodged them all. She realized he was using magic like an instinctual shield. It showed just how quickly he was advancing. She felt a little intimidated, but still effortlessly tossed him away with her powers. Meanwhile, Arashi was in a bind. His abilities were gone, and he was at a loss for how to defeat Gas. Gas landed a quick strike, cutting into his abdomen. Arashi was furious. He couldn't believe an old man was getting the better of him. He fell to his knees. Gas told him this was his limit without his powers. But Arashi wasn't about to give up. He declared he was destined to be strong, then unleashed a punch so powerful that Gas hit the ground bleeding. Arashi had emerged victorious. Back with Shuji, he understood he needed to win. His friend's fate was on the line. He stood up, a dangerous aura enveloping him. Leonora noticed his incredible stamina but remained calm. She was certain he still couldn't reach her. She was completely mistaken. In an instant, Suji was right in front of her, managing to slice her hand. She thought it was impossible, but she had no time to process it. Now Suji was behind her. She somehow summoned water powers to send him flying. She finally realized it. He had gained immediate movement. He flashed again, just a breath away from her neck, but then she suddenly commanded him to kneel. He froze, unable to move. Leonora smiled, saying she didn't want to resort to that, but he left her with no options. Gaia saw her unleash her trump card and quickly urged Kaki to move. Leonora smirked. She admitted she hadn't intended to use enslaving magic, but Shuji had pushed her into it. He lay at her feet, completely still, like a statue. The other candidates rushed in to save Shuji, but Leonora simply ordered them to halt. They all froze mid-stride. Leonora complimented them on their efforts, saying they'd all get a passing grade. She also mentioned she hadn't expected Gas to lose, but whatever. He was just a knight and easily replaceable. As long as she maintained control over them, there would be no problems. The candidates felt their hope slipping away. If they couldn't fight back, they were doomed. Leonora then revealed the truth. They were allowed to summon candidates so she could manage them when necessary. Otherwise, they would simply become threats. Suddenly, 3 knives zipped at her from behind. She dodged them effortlessly, coolly stating she knew he was lurking. It was Gas. He appeared shocked. She had even noticed someone as ordinary as him. Leonora shot back that there was something off about him from the start. She was let down that he would show up for such a hopeless battle. Then she commanded him to stop. Just like that, Gas was under her spell too. She was busy explaining her magic when suddenly, bam, a bullet struck her shoulder. Leonora was utterly stunned. How could he move, let alone fire while under her powerful spell? She was convinced her magic had him completely bound. Before she could even react, he fired again, hitting her in the abdomen. This unusual weapon bewildered her entirely. Guns didn't even exist in her world. Her defenses are no match for it. He quickly describes what a gun is, mentioning he only has a few bullets remaining and doesn't want to waste them. Leonora lets loose her own magic, but it merely scorches his robe. He has vanished. In an instant, he's right behind her, his gun aimed at her head. He tells her she's lacking when it comes to close combat, and more importantly, her enslaving magic didn't work on him. She's utterly shocked, totally in disbelief. This entire situation was a huge gamble by Gas, and he completely succeeded. The key, Kaki. Here's how it went down. The night before, Gas asked Kaki to use her domination skill on him. He figured out that the first skill cast always takes precedence over any new ones. So, Kaki's initial domination would cancel out Leonora's later enslaving magic. On top of that, candidates have divine protection, making their powers way stronger than regular magic. Kaki was skeptical though. Her skill felt much weaker compared to Leonora's powerful magic. Steady's situation was pretty similar. He cast his spell first, allowing him to regain control of his monsters. It was a big risk, but they had no other options. Back in the present, Leonora finally realizes it must be Kanzaki's doing. And she's spot on. Kai is indeed under Kanaki's spell. Kai then states it's game over for her and prepares to pull the trigger. But instead of a gunshot, Leonora is swiftly captured and handcuffed. These handcuffs are special. They seal her magic, and they're the same ones used on Kanzaki. She asks Kai what he intends to do. With her, his request is straightforward. He wants them sent back to their world, and then he'll let her go. Leonora apologizes, saying it's impossible. All she can do is summon magic. Getting them back requires an entirely different kind of spell. Kai understands she's not lying. She genuinely lacks the ability to send them back. Kai then inquires how she planned to send them home. After they defeated the Demon King, she explains that summoning demands a tremendous amount of energy, so they depend on their god for it. Essentially, it was the god who initially summoned them. The god himself would send them back once the Demon King had been taken down. But Leonora doesn't sound very optimistic. No past candidates ever made it back. They were all slain by the Demon King. Survivors just vanished without a trace. After a short exchange, Kai gears up to end her, but Shuji intervenes. Shuji claims he only teamed up because he believed Leonora could send them back home. But since she can't, he wants to maintain his hero candidate status. He doesn't want to be seen as a traitor in this world. Aren't we already traitors? Kai shot back. Leonora quickly attempted to soothe him, assuring him she would pretend that nothing happened that night, but Shuji interjected, pointing out that taking out a saintess is a serious crime and they'd all be in major trouble. The other candidates mostly sided with Shuji, although Narumi remained loyal to Kai. Shuji conceded that killing Leonora made some sense, but then posed the crucial question, what would they do afterward? Kai seemed to grasp Shuji's perspective. But then in a jaw-dropping move, he shot Leonora right between the eyes. Everyone went still. As Leonora's body crumpled to the ground, Kai tossed a smoke grenade and disappeared in the confusion. The other candidates were seething over his impulsive choice. Kaki, however, realized this was all part of Kai's plan from earlier, when they'd talked just hours ago. Kai had told Kaki their primary objective was to capture Leonora and find a way back home. But if that failed, his backup plan was to eliminate her. He knew if they captured her and couldn't return, Shuji would most likely protect Leonora. At that point, Kai intended to take her out anyway and then flee, bearing all the blame for the saint's death himself. That's why he let a few of her guards live so they could point fingers solely at him. He instructed Kaki to place all the blame on him and return to the Empire. Kaki was doubtful she could manage it, but Kai was adamant she could, even suggesting she use her powers during negotiations. She then asked him where he would go, and he simply told her not to fret about him. Meanwhile, far away in a shadowy castle, a minion was reporting his failure to eliminate the hero candidates to the Demon King. The Demon King wasn't fazed, telling him not to stress. He knew the heroes would eventually make their appearance on the front lines anyway. This whole game was becoming fascinating, and the Demon King was definitely enjoying the show. 2 days after the incident, Kai was hiding out in the woods. He was close to a city about a half-day's walk away. Since he couldn't simply stroll into a city after taking down a saintess, he had a plan to sneak in under the cover of night. Needing some cash, he spotted a bustling tavern. Inside, the atmosphere was lively, and someone struck up a chat asking him where he hailed from. Kai spun a tale saying he was from a nearby village and was currently on the lookout for a job. The man suggested he try his luck as an adventurer. He could pick up quests from the Adventurers Guild and actually get paid for it. The man also mentioned that the guild was eager for fresh faces and didn't even require ID. Kai decided to crash at an inn, relieved that no one recognized him from before. The next day, he made his way to the town's guild, checking out all the quirky characters hanging around. He approached the reception desk to sign up. They asked for his name, age, and where he was from. Kai gave a fake name, Siren, and said that the Demon King's army had wiped out his hometown. Siren was actually his old code name from his past life. The receptionist explained the guild's workings, detailing the ranks from A to F, where higher ranks meant better rewards. As a newbie, Aragi Kai was assigned as an F-rank adventurer. He quickly darted over to the bulletin board to snatch his first task. It wasn't long before 3 troublemakers arrived looking to mess with him. They started teasing him, but Aragi Kai wasn't about to take it. Just like last time, when surrounded by a group of adventurers warned him against taking a quest, he calmly faced them, thanked them for their concern, and told them to back off. This only made the guys more irritable, thinking Aragi Kai was way too full of himself. Other guild members began to murmur, noticing these bullies were targeting a newbie again. Then one of the guys decided to take action, shouting that Aragi Kai needed a lesson. But to his utter surprise, Aragi Kai easily blocked the punch by grabbing the guy's hand. The attacker was left stunned and yelled at Aragi Kai to let go. He calmly released him, not wanting to escalate things. However, the guy ordered his friends to gang up on Aragi Kai and show him what a real lesson looked like. They all charged at once, but Aragi Kai quickly took them down and casually strolled out of the guild. As he left Aragi, Kai pondered about how he now had a clear understanding of the typical adventurer's strength compared to hero candidates. It was surprisingly quite weak, so he resolved to finish his quest as quickly as possible. The scene then shifted to a forest where Aragi Kai guessed the kobolds should be lurking based on the quest details. Suddenly he noticed some animal-like footprints on the ground. He followed them, and as he ventured deeper, he sensed he wasn't alone. There were several presences around him. Aragi Kai also noticed these elusive creatures were very good at hiding, making him pretty sure they were kobolds. Out of nowhere, a kobold launched a surprise attack from behind, but Aragi Kai instantly sensed it and easily dodged. He noticed that the kobold was wielding a human sword, indicating it had likely taken down an adventurer before. While he was processing this, another kobold leaped from behind trying to strike. This time, Aragi Kai dodged once more, then scooped up some dirt from the ground and tossed it right into the kobold's eyes. With the second kobold temporarily blinded, Aragi Kai swiftly punched the first one in the face. As it collapsed, he quickly snatched its sword and dealt the final blow. The second kobold watched in astonishment, but before it could move, Aragi Kai attacked and quickly took it down with a knife, too. Aragi Kai then used his judgment skill to inspect the kobold's stats, realizing these creatures posed no threat to him whatsoever. Feeling overly confident, he decided that hunting more for extra cash would be a piece of cake. A bit later, the scene returned to the guild, where everyone was staring at Aragi in total disbelief. Aragi Kai had collected a bunch of cobalt ears as proof of his kills. He asked Mia, the receptionist, if that was sufficient. She confirmed it was, then asked if he was truly positive he had done it all solo. Aragi Kai calmly said yes, explaining that hunting kobolds was surprisingly straightforward. The tricky part was just finding them. Aragi Kai realized his combat skills were top-notch, but tracking down targets was still a weak spot. Everyone around was astonished when he returned after taking down the kobolds. They couldn't believe that hunting kobolds seemed so easy, even speculating he might be a C-rank adventurer from another city. Someone else quickly chimed in, mentioning they had heard Aragi Kai was actually a newbie. Mia, the receptionist, then jumped in, asking Aragi Kai to hold on. She went inside to prepare his reward. The scene then switched to night, showing Aragi Kai walking somewhere while counting his cash. He was taken aback by how much he could earn just by taking down weak magical creatures, but for now, making enough money to get by was his main focus. So, he opted to hang around the city and rake in the dough as an adventurer. Aragi Kai figured that building connections at the guild would definitely make gathering intel a breeze. Suddenly, someone popped up right in front of him. Aragi Kai glanced at the boy and asked if he needed anything. He noticed this kid seemed way tougher than the guys he had tussled with at the guild. The boy introduced himself as Lyle, a B-rank adventurer and the head of the city's guild branch. Aragi Kai casually responded, "So what?" Lyle then inquired if Aragi Kai was the same person who caused trouble for his crew at the guild earlier that day. Aragi Kai quickly fired back, saying, "Those guys started it first." Lial blew up, yelling at Aragi Kai not to spin tales. He'd heard some random rookie messed up his guys. Aragi Kai stood firm. "Yep, that was me," he confirmed. Upon hearing that Lyle lost it, vowing he'd teach Aragi Kai a serious lesson, Lyle unleashed a flurry of punches. But to his annoyance, Aragi Kai dodged them all with ease. Finally, Aragi Kai grew bored. He used his leg to trip Lial, sending him tumbling down. Lial was shocked, exclaiming, what Aragi Kai told Lial his speed was impressive, but he was too sloppy, and his movements were way too wide, leaving plenty of openings. Lial fumed, trying to attack again, and demanding to know what Aragi Kai just said. Aragi Kai blocked him once more, grabbing his hand and quickly throwing him to the ground. He explained that Lyle probably wasn't familiar with fighting humans, since his quests usually involved magical beasts. Lyle in anger asked why Aragi Kai attacked his men if he had so much power. Aragi Kai replied that he already mentioned it was a misunderstanding, and offered to explain everything from the beginning. A while later, the scene shifted back to the guild. Lyle apologized to Aragi Kai, admitting it was entirely his fault. Lyle even scolded and reprimanded his own crew for lying to him. Realizing he should have questioned their words, he yelled at his men, insisting they apologize to Aragi Kai. They begrudgingly said sorry after Lyle insisted. Aragi Kai replied that as long as the misunderstanding was cleared up, he didn't mind. He then brought up that he had a question. Lyle apologized again and assured Aragi Kai he would happily answer any query. Aragi Kai explained he was a traveler who became an adventurer just to earn some money for his journey. He also had another big reason for joining. Lyle, intrigued by Aragi Kai's remarkable power, asked what he was really after. Aragi Kai dropped a bombshell. He wanted to discover a way to travel to another world. Lyle and his crew were utterly taken aback. They asked him to elaborate, wondering if that was even a possibility. One of them remembered hearing that hero candidates often came from other worlds. Aragi Kai confirmed that's precisely what he meant, finding a way into their world. Lyle figured this whole thing must involve magic, which they weren't exactly experts in. Aragi Kai realized that this information wouldn't be easy to come by. He hoped Lyle's group might have a lead. Lyle immediately thought of someone, the sage Elbanakaret. Who's Elbanakaret? Aragi Kai asked, looking totally puzzled. Lyle was taken aback that Aragi Kai didn't know. He explained, Elbanakaret was an elf whose wisdom greatly benefited their country. Aragi Kai suddenly remembered hearing that name before. He recalled reading about an elven sage in old books, knowing elves typically resided deep in the forests. Aragi Kai remarked that elves were super rare now, almost like myths. They seldom left their woodlands, so an elf who ventured out and gained wisdom became known as a sage. Lyle added that Elbanakaret was over 100 years old and renowned for incredible wisdom. Lyle also mentioned Elbanakaret was a legendary spellcaster, well-versed in numerous types of magic. This made Aragi Kai ponder. Elves were known for their connection to spirits, which aided them in magic. Maybe even if there wasn't a hero travel spell. Elbanakaret could still discover a way. Lyle's teammate Raka chimed in. Is this sage Elbanakaret even still alive? He asked. I've never heard of them and nobody's seen them, right? Lyle just chuckled. He admitted he didn't have that information and apologized to Aragi Kai for not being more helpful. Aragi Kai reassured Lyle that the info he had was actually super helpful. He then mentioned that it was getting late and he was heading back to the inn. Lyle, still curious, inquired what Aragi Kai planned to do once he found a path to another world. Aragi Kai just grinned and told them to let their imaginations run wild. Feeling puzzled, they watched him stroll back to the inn. Fast forward 1 week and we see the guild. Mia was handing Aragi Kai his reward for a quest he had completed. Outside the guild, Aragi Kai reflected on how a whole week had flown by since he met Lyle's crew. He had saved up some cash during that time. Out of nowhere, Lyle and Raka approached him. They asked if he was done with his quest and invited him out for a drink. With a somewhat somber expression, Aragi Kai politely declined. Lyle remarked that Aragi Kai was pretty boring and waved goodbye. As Aragi Kai walked away, he thought about how he finally had some intel on the sage. Aragi Kai discovered the sage's name, Elbanakaret. This sage had served as the country's advisor around 10 years ago. Now, Elbanakaret resides near the western border, right where the nation is battling against the Demon King's forces. With this new information, Aragi Kai believed there was no reason to stick around in the city. He decided it was time to meet Sage Elbanakaret in person. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the Holy Temple City Alpha, where the hero candidates are gathered in a meeting. Heinrich, the captain of the 8th Night Corps, is speaking. He mentions it's been a month since he took over caring for the hero candidates after the fallen saints. Heinrich then asks Miduji if he has any issues with how things are going. Miduji quickly responds with a no, adding that Heinrich is doing an awesome job. Heinrich feels happy to hear that. He tells them the hero candidates are super important to the nation, so he ensures they're treated with respect. Hashimoto Mar thanks Heinrich for his concern, but she can't shake the feeling that he's completely different from Leonora. Something about the whole situation just feels off to her. Heinrich brings the group back to what's important. He explains that in yesterday's meeting they agreed to mobilize the hero candidates. Miduji is taken aback. He asks if that means they're being sent to the front lines. Heinrich confirms with a nod. He elaborates that there are still battles occurring at the western border. Heinrich pulls out a map and shows that they'll be moving to a fort right on the front lines. Miduji acknowledges that he understands and is about to mention a promise, but Heinrich interrupts him. He assures them he'll uphold his promise to protect anyone who isn't cut out for battle. Miduji expresses his gratitude to Heinrich, feeling really thankful for the reassurance. Heinrich then says he has some tasks for them to accomplish for now. Everyone needs to pitch in, he explains, to earn their keep. Miduji agrees, recognizing that having something to do is practical. Hashimoto Mari asks when they need to leave. Heinrich tells them to depart immediately. By the very next morning, he also instructs Miduji to inform everyone and ensure they're prepared for the trip. Later, as Miduji and Hashimoto Mari are heading back from the hall, Hashimoto Mari feels relieved. Heinrich actually accepted their request. Miduji agrees, admitting he was anxious. Their demands might have been too much, but he's glad everything turned out fine. Hashimoto Mari speculates that the knights probably lack confidence in managing the hero candidates without Leonora. That could explain why they're being so cautious. Miduji agrees and points out that with Leonora gone, the knights must be on high alert. Hashimoto Mar then wonders about Aragi Kai. Where has he gone? What's he up to right now? Suddenly, the scene jumps back to when Leonora was killed, and Aragi Kai left the hero candidates. The bishop tensely inquires, who could have possibly killed Leonora Nagase? Reina drops a bombshell. The culprit is Aragi Kai. She reveals he was among the hero candidates. The bishop and his guards are utterly shocked to hear this. The bishop urgently demands to know where Aragi Kai has gone. Nagase Rina informs them that Aragi Kai has fled, noting he's surprisingly quick for a traitor. The guards start murmuring. They deliberate whether to dispatch an inquisitor right away or first confirm if Saint Tess Leonora is truly deceased. Arashi Shinshuka was furious. He demanded the bishop explain himself. The bishop stated he wasn't completely dismissing their story. Instead, he suggested that all of the hero candidates might have banded together to dispose of Leonora. Midu Shuji froze at that. Just then, Leonora's knight stepped forward, completely shocking everyone. He had witnessed the entire event unfold. He told them Midu Shuji and the others did indeed try to protect the Saint Tess, but Aragi Kai was just too powerful, and Leonora met her end. The second knight backed him up on this story. The bishop then stated he'd believe it since her own knights were confirming the tale. The bishop then asked if Aragi Kai was truly that strong. Miduji gave him the nod of confirmation. He detailed how Aragi Kai had been keeping his true strength hidden this whole time. The bishop then invited them to his chambers for a more in-depth discussion and requested one of the hero candidates to join him. Meanwhile, Kinaki Ren was eavesdropping from behind a wall, using her powers on the knights. Miduji felt relieved. Kanaki Ren's support had really helped them out of that sticky situation. Fast forward to the present, Hashimoto Moore asked Miduji if he was still worried about Aragi Kai. He mentioned that fretting wouldn't help at all. Miduji forced a smile and pretended to agree, but inside he was really troubled. He understood that Aragi Kai had made a sacrifice for them. Miduji felt the weight of tension. He had vowed to protect everyone, yet Aragi Kai had taken on that load instead. Now Miduji felt utterly powerless to assist him. Back in the room, Miduji rallied everyone together. He announced their orders. It was time to head out to the front line. He instructed all combat-ready members to prepare for departure by tomorrow morning. Some of the guys started to feel really tense. The reality of facing an actual battle was beginning to sink in. Nagasena approached them. She reminded them it was too late to be scared, noting that they made the choice to join the combat crew themselves. Hano Shiori asked if they were the only ones heading to the front line. Miduji responded that they'd be accompanying the 8th Night Corps commanded by Captain Heinrich. Kenzaki Ren then inquired about any news regarding Aragi Kai. Miduji explained that the temple had placed a bounty on Aragi Kai. They dispatched a large number of hunters to track him down. He added that there was still no updates on Aragi Kai's whereabouts. Kanaki Ren looked genuinely saddened upon hearing that. Miduji was about to offer her some comfort, but Nagase interrupted, shouting that she didn't care if Aragi Kai was labeled a traitor. If she found him, she'd roast him to a crisp. Kanaki Ren was especially upset. She could only wonder why Aragi Kai hadn't brought her along. The scene then shifts to the jungle. All the hero candidates, knights, and guards were making their way through it. As they ventured deeper, Arashi Shinuka suddenly sensed something and came to a stop. Just then, Onoshi piped up, complaining that she was tired. Could they please take a breather? Hashimoto Moore quickly retorted that they had just eaten lunch, so no breaks for them. It appeared they would be walking until nightfall. Some of the guys were starting to wonder if anything was actually going to happen. They'd been trekking for 2 days straight with nothing to show for it. Arashi Shunshuka then called for everyone to halt. The others questioned what was going on. Arashi Shunshuka replied that he could sense a magical beast lurking behind the bushes. Just then, a knight appeared. He shouted at the hero candidates, demanding to know why they had come to a stop so abruptly. Midoshuji explained they felt a magical beast nearby, but the knight just scoffed, insisting he saw nothing. He reminded them they had to obey his orders and couldn't act without him. This made Arashi Shunhook infuriated. He grabbed the knight by the neck, demanding clarification. The terrified knight asked what Arashi Shonhuki was doing. Even Midoshuji tried to tell Arashi Shonhuki to cool it, but Arashi Shonhuki shouted back, questioning why he should heed the advice of a worthless knight. Suddenly, something attacked Arashi Shonhuki, forcing him to release the knight to dodge it. It turned out to be a magical beast resembling a rabbit, but with terrifying weapon-like hands. The guards grew anxious. "It's a savage rabbit," they shouted, warning everyone to brace for a fight. But before the guards could even react, the fierce rabbits charged right at them, knocking swords from their hands. One rabbit locked eyes with a guard ready to strike. However, a colossal blast of fire erupted seemingly out of nowhere, obliterating the sharp rabbit. It was Arashi Shunshuki, wielding his powers to defeat the beast. The guard expressed his gratitude to Arashi Shunhuki for saving him, but Arashi Shunuki simply told him to step aside and not interfere. Then Arashi Shinuki effortlessly took down every last sharp rabbit one by one. Some students were totally in awe of his strength. It was way more destructive than anything they had ever encountered before. However, Arashi Shinuki felt completely unsatisfied. He believed his power still fell short in comparison to Aragi Kai's. The scene then flashed back to a moment when Aragi Kai had aimed a gun at Leonora. Spotting Aragi Kai again ignited a fierce rage in Arashi Shunshuk. Arashi Shunshuk was feeling really frustrated. From the very beginning, Aragi Kai had never shown any hint of fear towards him, which confirmed that Aragi Kai was definitely the stronger one. Aragi Kai's total indifference only made Arashi Shinuki even more convinced of this. Arashi Shinuki thought he was tougher with all the new explosive power he gained, but it was super annoying to realize that Aragi Kai was still on another level. Suddenly, we snapped back to the present. Midoshuji broke into Arashi Shunhook's thoughts, asking why he looked so irritated. Arashi Shunhook shrugged it off, saying it was nothing. He really just couldn't stand being ordered around by someone he saw as worthless. A little later, the group reached Fort Truss, which was situated on the western border of the Diggerest Holy Kingdom. First, Captain Amelia of the Holy Knights introduced herself. She led their order, stationed right there. Heinrich asked Amelia what had happened to their previous captain, the Watchdog. Amelia simply mentioned that he had passed away about a week ago. Upon hearing this, the hero candidates felt a bit taken aback. Amelia then started to say she wanted them to relax after their long journey, but she didn't even get to finish her sentence. The guards suddenly shouted, "The Demon King's army is attacking!" They hollered, and Amelia, surprisingly cheerful, pointed out that as they just heard, there was no time for a break. "I'm relying on all of you," she exclaimed. Midatoy agreed and urged every hero candidate to prepare for battle. Arashi Shinuki looked super determined, completely ready for the upcoming fight. The guards rang the alert bell, yelling that the demon army was getting closer. Max was taken aback by the sheer number of monsters. Why are there so many, he wondered aloud. Hinrik quickly instructed the guards to start attacking and thin the horde before they got too near. Arrows flew and fireballs erupted as the guards and fire knights fought against the incoming monsters. But even after all the hits, the monsters simply kept advancing. They loudly proclaimed their mission to wipe out all humans. Miduji was genuinely shocked to see them still pushing forward, despite taking heavy damage. Amelia explained that these monsters wouldn't go down easily. She cautioned all the hero candidates not to underestimate their strength and stamina. Humans, she emphasized, were considerably weaker in comparison. Feeling tense, Miduji turned to Amelia and asked what their next move should be. Amelia told Miduji to simply follow Heinrich's directives. She announced that she would personally lead the Fourth Order Knights into the fray. Hinrich added that he was about to give a similar command. However, some fighters were already down there battling the monsters. Miduji, confused, asked Hinrik who he was referring to. Nagase Raya quickly explained to Midu Shuji that Hinrik meant Arashi Shonhuki and his crew, who had already taken the lead. Miduji was astonished and asked Nagase Raya to repeat what she just said. As the smoke cleared, the monsters spotted humans directly facing them. They all laughed at Arashi Shunuki and the others, calling them foolish for marching to their doom. Arashi Shunuki didn't care whether they were demons or anything else. He confidently declared that he would eliminate them all, and just like that, the fight kicked off. Inside the fort, some monsters broke through a wall and began attacking the guards. Just as one monster was about to hit a guard, Miduji swooped in, blocking the blow with his sword. Even the guard was startled to see him. Miduji then unleashed a powerful sword extension attack, swiftly taking down the monster. After that, he felt a surge of confidence. He realized his power was growing and that he could handle this situation. He shouted to everyone else, "We can win this battle. Let's fight without fear." Hearing his words, every hero candidate was filled with fresh energy and excitement for the battle. As Miduji prepared to jump back into the fray, he reminded himself to not hesitate. He knew that any doubt from him as their leader would make the rest of the team anxious. He recalled Aragi Kai teaching him about the risks of being naive. Hashimoto Mei also encouraged everyone to stop watching and join in the fight alongside Midu Shuji. Nagasar activated his special attacks, while Kaki Ren started dominating the monsters. The fierce battle between the monsters and the hero candidates raged on. Observing the hero candidates fight, the guards were utterly amazed by their strength. They were absolutely commanding over the Demon King's army. Heinrich shouted out, instructing the guards to cover the hero candidates, allowing them to push back the demons with even more force. The guards agreed and charged ahead, engaging in a long, fierce battle until they finally triumphed over the Demon King's army. Amelia joyfully declared their win, and the guards burst into celebration. As the sun began to set, Midu Shuji found himself deep in thought, but Hinrik snapped him out of it, asking if that was his first time in a fight like that and how it felt. Miduji admits that managing such a huge battle is really challenging. He explains that his focus narrowed during the fight, making it tough to give clear commands. Hinrik gives him kudos for his hard work and also commends the hero candidates for their role in the victory. But Hinrik isn't letting them off the hook. He warns them to stay on their toes. They only faced mid-tier foes with a small group this time. High-ranking demons. That's a whole different story because of their much stronger abilities. Miduji gets serious, assuring Hinrik he'll keep that warning in mind. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the Demon Den. A monster is reporting to Stonega, one of the Demon King's 4 heavenly kings. The monster apologizes for messing up, and Stonega Gaia is not pleased. Over in the great forest of Aragi, Kai is on the move. He's nearing the edge of the forest, thinking his visit to see the sage must be coming to an end soon. Suddenly, something zooms towards him. Tongues whip out, aiming to strike. Aragi Kai somehow dodges, noting their insane speed and wondering what on earth they are. He scans the surroundings and spots new magical beasts. His system quickly labels them as tongue baboons. After a quick status check, Aragi Kai shrugs. They're pretty weak creatures. The tongue baboons attack again, but Aragi Kai effortlessly ducks away. When he sees them closing in quickly, he shows off his agility. Leaping to dodge their strike, the baboons lunge again with their tongues. This time, Aragi Kai swiftly pulls out his knife and slices right through one tongue. The tongue baboons are completely shocked by this move. Aragi Kai continues to slice until he completely severs the tongue. The baboon tries a tail whip, but it's far too slow. Aragi Kai dodges easily and takes the creature down quickly. The other baboons freeze, stunned and unsure of what to do. Aragi, now seriously irritated, challenges them. "So, are you coming for me, or do I need to come to you and finish this?" Not long after, the tongue baboons lie defeated. Aragi Kai notices more powerful magical beasts appearing. He wonders if he's edging closer to the Demon King's territory. Or maybe it's just that this forest is far from cities, so fewer knights or adventurers come tramping through here. He figures the deeper he goes, the more likely he'll encounter strong beasts untouched by humans. Good thing his appraisal skill helps him spot some of these creatures. Aragi Kai decides to stay super alert from that point on. After a while, he finally reaches Mount Urugano. This mountain range acts as a natural barrier, slowing down the Demon King's army. He knows the highest peak is called Reaper Wolf Mountain, and it's said that Sage Alabama lives right at the top. Aragi Kai tries to recall if there's a small village at the base of Reaper Wolf Mountain. When he reaches the village, he's completely taken aback. The entire place is engulfed in flames. He immediately wonders if the Demon King's army attacked. His suspicions are confirmed. Monsters are everywhere in the burning village. Aragi Kai watches from a rooftop completely hidden. This place should be well away from the front lines, he thinks, realizing he needs to be way more cautious now. The monsters ask their leader Hector what to do, questioning whether they should just wipe out the humans, but Hector quickly puts a stop to that, saying they should enslave the humans instead. He then asks if they've gathered any info about Alana Carrot. A monster confirms that the sage resides on top of Reaper Wolf Mountain. Hearing this, Hector gets super annoyed. It seems their intel was spot on. He emphasizes that Alban Carrot, the sage, is their absolute top priority. Hector instructs his monsters to hang out in the village for the night. Tomorrow they're climbing Reaper Wolf Mountain, but one monster raises a concern, pointing out that Reaper Wolf Mountain is home to the Reaper Wolfen wild beasts nobody can tame. They figure if they can't defeat these Wolfen, they won't get anywhere close to their goal. A second monster asks why. The first monster explains that mind control magic doesn't work on super intelligent magical beasts. He even heard that the 4 heavenly kings once managed to tame a dragon, but taking on a Reaper Wolfen, no way, that's just impossible. Hector jumps in, pointing out that he's not exactly a wizard with magic, so chatting about powers they don't possess is pointless. Their real option is to defeat this untamable magical creature. The other critters totally agree with Hector. Watching all this go down, Aragi realizes the entire group is super organized under Hector's command. He starts to wonder if it's because Hector is a high-ranking demon. Aragi Kai checks Hector's rank and confirms it. Hector is one of the elite high-ranking demons of the Demon King. Now, Aragi Kai understands that facing off against Hector directly would be incredibly tough. Suddenly, Hector feels like someone's eyes are on him. He instructs his monsters to investigate. Sensing a presence nearby, Aragi Kai is genuinely impressed by Hector's keen senses. The monsters begin their search for Aragi Kai, but he's pretty relaxed. He's a pro at hiding. Then, Aragi Kai spots some captured humans all tied up with ropes. Even when he sees the villagers, Aragi Kai decides to hold back. His main goal, just like the demons, is to find the sage Elbana Carrot. He knows he needs to scale that mountain before the Demon King's army does. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the highest, most perilous peak of Oregano Mountain, better known as Reaper Wolf Mountain. Aragi has somehow made it this far up. His map shows no defined path, so he opts to follow the animal trails. His vision is blurring, and the ground feels super unsteady. Even though he's in a hurry, he decides to tread carefully. As Aragi climbs, he senses a presence. Could it be the legendary Wolfen of Reaper Wolf Mountain? He listens closely and hears not one, not 2, but 3 distinct sounds that are getting louder. Aragi realizes that even though these wolves are well hidden, their presence is incredibly strong. Out of nowhere, he's completely surrounded. Just as they're about to pounce, he jumps onto a nearby tree. Aragi was stunned when he finally understood why so many people had vanished in the mountains. He then used his appraisal skill to check the wolves' stats. They had average stats, but their true power lay in their teamwork. Suddenly, while Aragi was sizing them up, a wolfen charged at the tree and snapped it in half. Aragi had to act fast. He grabbed a leaf, infused it with mana, and struck the wolfen. In seconds, the wolfen was sliced clean in half and toppled. Other wolfen lunged, but Aragi kept taking them down with his leaf. 2 more fell just the same way. Now 5 or 6 wolfen were gearing up to rush him all at once. This time, Aragi poured mana into his own body. He believed that doing it intentionally would make a big difference. Leonora once told him that people who always depended on divine protection usually struggled with controlling their mana. He also recalled Leonora saying those constantly leaning on divine protection had no clue how to wield mana at all. She called them weaklings, which is why she could control everyone. No wonder they couldn't fend off her enslavement magic back then. Aragi knew he needed to get stronger and tackle this weakness. He figured that mastering mana control would also boost his resilience against enemy spells. He also understood mana wasn't as formidable as divine protection, but to truly gain power in this new world, he had to learn it. So Aragi decided to keep battling the wolf and practicing mana control as he ascended the mountain. Suddenly, Aragi sensed something and zipped right to that spot. He headed straight for the wolf and its leader. Once he arrived, he asked the wolfen for confirmation. The other wolfen were completely baffled by what Aragi was doing. But when the leader launched an attack, Aragi quickly defended himself and took it down without a second thought. Aragi looked up and saw that the moment their leader fell, all the other wolfen took off in a flash. Of course, it was the strongest magical beast among them. Aragi then chased after the rest of the wolfen by himself. Suddenly, something wild happened that totally blew his mind. He saw a red projection of the wolfen. Aragi wondered if his skill was giving him a glimpse of the wolf's future moves. He was spot on. It was predicting their future trajectories. With this newfound power, he quickly took down 2 more wolves. Aragi realized his prediction ability allowed him to see about 1 second into the future. The remaining wolves were frozen in fear witnessing this. But Aragi told them not to even think about running and instead to stick around for a little more training. Aragi swiftly dealt with all the wolves. Checking his status, he noticed his new ability, Divine Protection of Foresight. This power allowed him to anticipate his enemy's future moves. He recalled that his appraisal skill had also leveled up when he acquired weak point detection. This indicated that his blessings upgraded from normal to enhanced, empowering him to evaluate everything around him. Feeling fatigued, Agari decided it was time to take a breather. But just then, he felt something significant. Pondering whether the Demon King's army had finally arrived, he instantly scrapped his plans for rest and dashed toward the unusual presence. Meanwhile, near a towering mountain, monsters had taken captive an elf girl named Mare. Their leader Hector admired her fighting spirit, stating that it resembled that of a sage's disciple. Yet he proclaimed her time was up, commanding his monsters to eliminate her. Mare attempted to respond, but a monster suddenly charged at her. In a flash, Agari appeared, catching Mare in his arms just in time to evade the attack. Everybody was astounded. Mare was taken aback. A human had come to her rescue. A bewildered monster shouted, asking who Agari was, questioning whether he was a new adversary. Agari quickly scanned the surroundings, realizing there were 10 monsters altogether led by Hector, a high-ranking demon. Mare then inquired why Agari had helped her. Agari retorted, asking if she was a disciple of Sage Elbanakaret. When Mare confirmed, Agari simply stated he needed to have a word with the sage. That was his reason for intervening. Using his appraisal skill on Mare, Agari discovered she was a half-elf with spell skills. Hector grumbled that it didn't matter who Agari was. He was clearly an enemy. He commanded his monsters to eliminate the elf and the human immediately. Agari realized he needed to defeat these monsters to rescue Mare and gain favor with the sage. The monsters charged and Agari activated his foresight, aiming to predict their every action. His foresight was astounding. He perceived every incoming attack, enabling him to block each one flawlessly. The monsters stood speechless. With a few swift moves, Agari took them down one by one with his knife. The remaining monsters looked on in disbelief. Agari thought to himself that with foresight activated, he felt unstoppable in close combat. His only concern was how long the skill would endure. Meanwhile, Hector adapted his strategy, instructing his monsters to halt their rush and cast magic instead. The monsters complied and started shooting magic projectiles at Agari. Spotting the magic, Agari tensed, aware of their danger. But just then, Mare cast a spell. She summoned Sylph, the wind spirit, and blew all the magic projectiles far away. What a save. Was that a spell? Agari asked, astonished. He realized only elves could draw strength from spirits like that. Mare confirmed it, expressing her gratitude to Agari. She added that because of him, the spirits could finally find peace. Furious, Hector exclaimed that they wouldn't win this way. He resolved to join the battle personally. Agari got serious. He asked Mare, referring to her as an elf, to keep the other monsters at bay while he faced their leader. Mare asserted she could handle it, but requested Agari to stop calling her an elf. Her name was Mare after all. Agari quickly agreed, showing his confidence in her by referring to her as the sage's disciple. Mare was livid, shouting that her name was Mare, but then she sighed in exasperation, telling Agari to let it go. Meanwhile, Agari confronted Hector head-on and immediately sensed Hector was incredibly powerful. Even after their swords clashed, Agari used Hector's blade to propel himself into the air, attacking with his knives, but Hector countered the knife attack with his own sword. Then, without warning, Hector retaliated. Agari was lightning quick, dodging the blow and managing to land a slash on Hector with his knife. Hector received some damage. Surprised that Agari had anticipated his move, he even complimented him on a good try. Agari, however, was shocked. The wound wasn't merely a scratch. He grew apprehensive, fully realizing the strength of a high-ranking demon. He understood that his foresight ability was his only chance of survival. Hector taunted Agari, claiming that if he weren't human, this fight would have been over by now. Agari employed his appraisal skill to check Hector's stats. Not only did Hector possess the powerful physique and keen senses of a high-ranking demon, but he also had swordsmanship at level 5. Agari understood that a direct confrontation posed a significant disadvantage even with his foresight. He had to come up with a new tactic. Hector shouted that if Agari wouldn't approach him, he'd charge at Agari. Still, Agari somehow managed to dodge Hector's rush. Finally, he felt a cut on his hand from Hector's assault, making him tense. He understood that just predicting the future meant nothing if his body couldn't keep up. The physical gap between them was simply too vast. Hector just chuckled, teasing Agari and asking if he was just going to run around like that. Out of the blue, Agari pulled a gun and shot at Hector. Hector easily deflected the bullets with his hand, thanks to his incredible reflexes. Agari observed this and felt a rush of relief when the bullets actually pierced Hector's hand, causing him some injury. Hector looked taken aback. He shouted, demanding to know what kind of strange gadget Agari was using. What an outrageous device, Hector bellowed, fuming, and charged at Agari. Agari was prepared to fire back with his gun, but Hector effortlessly dodged the bullets, warning Agari not to underestimate him. He claimed he could foresee the direction of the bullets, without any trouble. Running out of bullets, Agari switched to throwing knives at Hector. Hector casually blocked each one with his sword. Then, to Hector's surprise, Agari abruptly halted his attacks and sat down quietly on the ground. Before Hector could even respond, Agari tossed a bomb right at him. Hector wondered what on earth this was and charged toward Agari. But just before he could reach him, the bomb exploded. All the other monsters gasped. Even Mar was stunned, questioning who Agari really was, amazed by his skills. She noted how a human was genuinely overpowering a high-ranking demon. Meanwhile, Agari was poised with a knife. He had run out of ammo for his emergency handgun, and that grenade was his ultimate backup. Watching Hector rise again, Agari recognized that guns and grenades wouldn't be enough to take him down. Hector was furious. Now Agari was using way too many unfamiliar gadgets in their battle, prompting Hector to unleash his rage. But Agari skillfully dodged. At that moment, Agari decided to activate his weak point detection skill. First, he needed to carefully observe Hector's actions. Hector got ready to strike, but Agari was already a step ahead, clearly seeing exactly where Hector would attack and pinpointing the perfect weak spot, which was the neck. He positioned himself, knife at the ready. Hector charged right into it, practically impaling himself on Agari's blade, which aimed directly for his neck. Hector was shocked. How had Agari hit him so accurately? Agari was thrilled with the effectiveness of his weak point detection skill, but it drained his mana completely. Feeling exhausted, he sat down. Agari tensed, aware his mana was totally depleted. This was really bad news. The other monsters noticed Hector had fallen, and witnessing Agari's fatigue, they decided to attack. Mir panicked as well. Her spirits were all spent, but she desperately wanted to help Agari, if only to repay him for saving her earlier. Just as the monsters lunged at Agari, a massive fire spell erupted. It engulfed the entire group in flames, wiping them out in an instant. Agari realized this level of firepower far exceeded what Nagasi Rhea could conjure. Then, a voice chimed in from Mayer's side, apologizing for being late. Mayer was ecstatic to see her calling her master. In that moment, Agari pieced it all together. This was Elba Carrot, the sage he had been searching for. Elba Carrot expressed gratitude to Agari, noting that it seemed he had been looking out for her disciple. Agari quickly responded that it was just a coincidence, then asked if she really was the great sage Elbana Carrot. She confirmed, adding that she was just old and frail compared to her former self. Agari attempted to use his appraisal skill, but his mana was still too low. Even without appraisal, Agari recognized that Sage Albanacare was extremely powerful. He realized he could never defeat her, so he thought there was no point in holding back anything. He just had to be straightforward. Albanacare inquired if Agari had business with her, to which he replied yes. She remarked that no one came to her without a purpose, and thanked him once more for saving her disciple. She promised to do her utmost to address his questions. Mira then suggested they head back home as the area was smelling like blood, and wolves might be lurking nearby. Elban Karet agreed and invited Agari to come along, saying he needed rest as well. Agari accepted. As they strolled, he reflected on how things were looking up and helping her. Disciple had definitely paid off. Sometime later, Agari and the others reached Elba Karet's house. Once they were inside, Mir declared her intention to take a bath. Agari then asked Elbana Karet why she lived in such a secluded place. Elbana Karet replied she had several reasons, but mainly she wanted to reconnect with nature. Even after stepping back, many people still tried to take advantage of her. Agari understood, noting that her home was definitely not the easiest to access. Elbakari mentioned that talented folks like him sometimes found their way to her. She wasn't the type to turn away those who sought her help. Agari then jumped right into the main topic. He was one of the hero hopefuls chosen to take on the Demon King. Elbana replied that they were the third wave of candidates. Elbana had heard whispers but never imagined the summoning had actually taken place. Agari was stunned to discover he belonged to the third wave. He recalled Leonora dropping hints that other heroes had been summoned before him. Elbana Kare confirmed that heroes were summoned about 4 years prior. marking their second attempt. The first summoning took place around 10 years earlier. She detailed that both previous hero groups tried to confront the Demon King, but sadly they were all wiped out. After that, the summoning ritual was locked away, not meant to be used again. However, Saint Leonora aimed to break that rule and call forth a third wave. Elba disagreed, thinking it was absurd to rely on a stranger from another world for a nation's future, even if a god wanted it. Agari then calmly revealed that he had already dealt with Leonora. This meant nobody else could attempt another summoning ritual. Elba Carrot was in disbelief. How could he possibly defeat Leonora? Agari grinned and said, "There are plenty of ways to win against someone, even when they're way stronger." Elba Carrot chuckled, agreeing that it made a lot of sense. She found it pretty amusing that Leonora was bested by her own pawn. So Leonora got what was coming to her, Elba Kari thought. She then recognized Agari's wish to return home as a completely natural desire. She stated that she preferred to keep things short and sweet, and would get right to the point. Her spells couldn't send them back home. Agari was taken aback and disappointed to hear this. He asked if she had any clue on how they could get back. Elbana Carrot explained that while summoning folks using human magic was doable, sending them back was a whole different story. That know-how had been lost for centuries since nobody needed to look into it. Agari noted that Leonora had mentioned the same thing. He inquired, did that mean they were pretty much left with no choice but to take down the Demon King? Elbana Carrot answered that was likely right, or perhaps some demonic arts could do the trick. Learning about demonic arts, Agari decided that was his next lead. Elbana Kare apologized for not being able to help more and thanked him for rescuing her disciple. She promised to keep him posted if she discovered anything useful. Agari expressed his gratitude. Elbana Carrot smiled, proposing that maybe he actually could defeat the Demon King. Agari said he wasn't looking for such a tough task, but if there was no alternative, he'd have to take down the Demon King. Elbana Carrot stiffened, sensing the anger and deadly intent on his face. She thought Agari was unlike other heroes she had encountered, almost as if he hailed from a dark, cold place. Finally, Agari thanked Elba Carrot for her time. He requested that she reach out to Siren at the Adventurers Guild if she found any helpful information. Elba Carrot then decided to let Mayor accompany Agari. Just as Mayor wrapped up her bath, she advised Agari to clean up too. He was probably feeling pretty grimy after the mountain hike and the fight. Agari agreed with Mayor, realizing she was spot on about the bath, but Elbana Carrot jumped in with a suggestion. Agari asked her what it was. Elbana then posed a question to Agari. Why not bring my disciple with you? Mayor was completely taken aback. Disciple? You mean me? She blurted out. Suddenly, there was a jump in the scene. Agari and Mayor were already on the move in the eastern region of the Dodora demonic kingdom. This area is actually the frontline battleground against the holy kingdom of Daggerest, so it looks like Agari did take Mayor with him on his journey. Agari noted the pleasant weather, remarking that he had heard the demon territory was really harsh. Mayor quickly corrected him, explaining they were still in what used to be Holy Kingdom land. She added that the real bad weather would hit them once they ventured deeper into Dora. Agari soon realized that the Demon King's army had invaded and claimed this territory. Mayor continued pointing out a big city called Nutrat near the western Urugano mountain range. She mentioned there used to be villages around it. That city, she revealed, had fallen to the Demon King's army and was now their frontline, their target. She figured it would take them about 2 days of walking to get there. Agari cautiously asked what happened to the people from those villages. Mayor's voice turned somber as she explained. She mentioned that half the population was wiped out and the rest got enslaved by demons for forced labor. Only a handful of fortunate ones managed to escape over the mountains. Hearing this, Agari nodded. He was genuinely amazed by Mar's insights and felt even more convinced that bringing her along was a stellar choice. But wait, let's step back for a moment. This takes us back to when Elbana Carrot first asked Agari to take Mayor. At first, Agari outright declined, which completely took Mayor by surprise. She shouted at him to at least consider it. Elbana just chuckled, telling Agari to be mindful of his words. She reminded him that, for someone new to this world, Mayor would be incredibly valuable. Her family's knowledge passed down for generations was extensive. Elbana also admitted she had been hoping to send Mare on an adventure, but she worried about her sweet disciple going solo. Agari looked puzzled. He asked Elbana why she was trusting Mare to him when she could simply take Mare along herself. Elbana explained that she couldn't embark on journeys anymore. Even if she seemed youthful and fit, her time and abilities had their limits. Then Agari came along and saved Mare's life. Mare began to express her gratitude, but mentioned she needed some time to think it over. Agari interrupted her. He informed her he was planning to infiltrate demon territory, which was super dangerous. He warned her, "If you hold me back, I'll leave you behind." Elbana then turned to Mayor, reminding her it was her own life, her choice. Mayor focused on that word, her life. She declared, "I understand, I'm ready to go with Agari." And just like that, we're back to the present. Agari was tense. "You look worn out," he told Mayor. Just a heads up, we still have an entire day of walking ahead, Mayor replied. Don't expect too much from a spellcaster's body. She clarified that although she honed her magical abilities, she had been training her body all along. Agari then suggested they call it a day and rest up. Mare was taken aback. Didn't you say you'd leave me behind if I slowed you down, she asked. Agari looked at her like she was being silly. What nonsense are you talking about? He said I wouldn't ditch you for something like that. He then told her to hurry and set up camp. Mar, clearly impressed by his answer, nodded and said she'd have it ready in just a few minutes. Night came. Agari and Mare sat by a bonfire. Mare was munching away while Agari watched her, looking a bit unsure. Agari then reminded Mare that their journey was about to take a dangerous turn. He vowed he wouldn't back down no matter how tough the challenges got because he had to get home, but he wondered if Mar had a strong enough reason to stick with him. Agari then asked if Elbanakarat was being truthful about her reasons for joining. Mare confessed it was tough to explain. She revealed that she lost everything. Her old home, the Elven village, was completely destroyed by the Demon King's army. Agari was shocked and asked if the war was only between humans and monsters. Mayor dismissed it, saying those lines didn't matter. The demons just smashed through everyone. She then shared that her father, mother, and even her little brother were all killed. Her dad sacrificed himself, drawing the monsters' attention away, and that's how she managed to survive. Mayor recalled feeling utterly helpless back then. After the Demon King's army left, they just abandoned her. That's when Elbanakaret found her, took her under her wing, and became her mentor. Agari interrupted, saying he wasn't interested in her backstory. He just wanted to know her goal. Mayor shot back that he should have figured it out by now. She became Elbanakaret's student and a spellcaster for one reason, to get strong enough to defeat monsters. Mayor's eyes glinted with fury and vengeance. She declared that everything she learned over the last 10 years, all her training was solely for revenge. She swore she would make the monster who killed her family pay. Agari, taken aback, asked for the demon's name. Mare revealed it was Wimberg, the heavenly king of the wind. He was one of the Demon King's top leaders, part of the 4 heavenly kings. Agari then asked if Mare joined him just to get closer to Wimberg. He added that for now he didn't have any personal gripes with demons. Mare also confessed she didn't understand why Elbanakaret allowed her to head out after meeting Agari. She admitted she had no idea what her master was thinking, so for now she'd just follow Agari's lead. Agari simply said he got her situation. Agari suddenly recalled Elbanakaret's advice to keep an eye on Mayor. He felt super confident he could manage her just fine. Everything made sense to Agari now. Elbanakaret was worried about sending his student off solo, since Mayor might recklessly throw herself into danger for revenge. Mayor quickly said sorry for getting so intense. She reassured Agari that he didn't need to fret. She wasn't looking to drag him into her quest for revenge. Agari understood. Mayor was determined to tackle this alone. He urged her to let it go and get some rest since they had to travel the next day. Mayor nodded in agreement, saying she'd set up some protective spirits to keep watch and alert them if any monsters popped up. Mayor drifted off into a peaceful sleep, but Agari couldn't shake thoughts of the Demon King's 4 heavenly kings. He watched Mayor snoozing, then quietly slipped out of the tent. He recalled his last foe was a high-ranking demon, and now he was facing someone even tougher. Realizing they needed to level up big time before facing such formidable foes, Agari pushed those worries away for the moment. Stressing over it wouldn't do any good right now. Meanwhile, in the Holy Kingdom's fort, officials were gathered, feeling the time was finally right to launch an attack, especially with the hero candidates around. Everyone was on board and began debating where to strike first. Amelia suggested going for Fort Eris first. It had once been their stronghold and was now the frontline base for the enemy. Regaining that would be a monumental win. Hinrik chimed in saying, if we take them down here, the enemy will definitely retreat. However, Hinrik considered it a reckless move. They had only been on the defensive until now. Why attack out of the blue? The officials pushed back against Hinrik, asking if he'd still hesitate if he had the hero candidates under his command. Amelia saw Hinrik's perspective, but countered that the enemy might be underestimating them, so a surprise attack could be effective. She then turned to Midashuji, asking if they had located his body. Miduji simply replied affirmatively. He was prepared to join the fight when needed. Sword at the ready. Shortly after, Hinrik, Miduji, and Hashimoto Mari exited the meeting. Hinrik mentioned the attack was scheduled for the following day. Hashimoto Mari, surprised by Amelia's bold approach, asked Hinrik if he genuinely thought the plan would work, given everyone's apparent confidence. Midoshuji jumped in, stating that if they were going to strike, doing it while the enemy was still in disarray was smart. He firmly believed it was a sound decision. But Heinrich disagreed, concerned they were putting too much stock in the hero candidate's abilities, risking overconfidence. Heinrich added that even though they had only been fortifying defenses, they couldn't ignore orders from higher-ups. Hashimoto Mari skeptically asked, "So we really have no option, huh?" Heinrich replied. "Of course I'll help them however I can, but it's crucial that the hero candidates get some good rest." Suddenly, Miduji felt a surge of apprehension. He sensed something was off, but knew they had no alternative. The next day, near Fort Arles, everyone was ready. The hero candidates and Hinrich's team got set to launch their assault on the fort. Nagase questioned why they were attacking in broad daylight. Wouldn't a surprise evening attack be more advantageous? Hinrich explained that demons are superb at seeing in the dark, making night attacks less favorable. Midashuji then clarified their primary objective: take down the monster leader. The main force would keep the other monsters occupied. He reminded them that the leader was likely a high-ranking demon. Miduji announced to the hero candidates that he would lead the charge. If he got separated, they should either buy time or retreat. Just then, a guard rushed over to Hinrich. The message from the main force was clear. It was time to commence the operation. Hinrich gave the order to charge. Midosha-gi and the others didn't hesitate. They stormed the fort without delay, charging in. Amelia's voice rang out. Annihilate those monsters. Little did they know, Stone Gaia, the king of the demon army, was closely watching their every movement. Moments later, Hinrich and a few hero candidates burst into the main tower of the fort. The monsters inside were completely thrown off guard. They tried to fight back, but Miduji dispatched them in mere moments. Heinrich warned Miduji to stay alert. There was a strong chance the enemy leader was still lurking in the hall. Suddenly, monsters poured in from both sides, blocking their escape. Some hero candidates nervously asked Miduji what their next steps should be. Hinrich directed Miduji to keep their backs to the 8th Night Order and push toward their target. Midashuji agrees with the plan and shouts out to Nagasarina. She confidently responds that she already knows her task is to clear the monsters in their way. Nagasarina unleashes her powers and the gang jumps into action. They swiftly take down all the critters blocking their way. At last, they swing open the giant door, but everyone freezes in their tracks. A humanoid figure stands there, leaving them all in awe. Sam nervously asks, "What in the world is this?" Arashi Shuki then inquires if this figure is their leader. The figure introduces himself as Stone Gaia, one of the Demon King's 4 heavenly kings. Kaki, Ren, and Hashimoto Mor tense up right away upon hearing this. Even Miduji feels the hairs on his neck stand up. The pressure from Stone Gaia is totally overwhelming. He draws his sword, challenging them to a showdown of power. Midashuji tells everyone to brace themselves, all the while secretly trying to find his own bravery. He knows if they falter here, all the sacrifices the main forces made would be for nothing. Everyone gets ready to battle, but instead, Stone Gaia simply sits down and places his hand on the ground. Midashuji is baffled. Suddenly, to their surprise, an orange circle appears around Stone Gaia. All the hero candidates instinctively tense up. Dirt erupts from the ground, summoning a ton of golems right in front of Raka and the others. Everyone is stunned. Stone Gaia then instructs the golems to charge and eliminate the hero candidates. Midashuji yells for everyone to hold them back. Narumi Yoshia agrees and begins his attack. He taps into his nature powers, slicing through golems with razor-sharp leaves. Arashi Shunuki jumps in too, blasting through golems with fiery punches. He laughs, saying, "No matter how many golems there are, these slowpokes don't stand a chance." But then Stone Gaia uses his magic. The damaged golems begin to regenerate their bodies. The hero candidates are left in shock, questioning how that's even possible. They keep fighting, breaking down golems only for them to spring back to life again. At one point, Raka nearly gets smacked by a golem. Luckily, Kaki Ren uses her domination attack to gain control of some of them. But when another hero tries to hit a controlled golem, it unexpectedly fights back. Hashimoto Mei unleashes a furious attack with her telekinesis, smashing the golems. Frustrated, they watch as the golems regenerate yet again moments later. Arashi Shunuki is fed up, realizing this regeneration seems never-ending. That's when Narumi Yoshia recalls similar manga situations. The best move is generally to take out the summoner. Narumi Yoshia tells Midshuki they'll manage the golems. He urges Midashuji to focus on confronting the summoner instead. Midashuji understands. He and Arashi Shunuki are ready to take on the summoner. They charge fiercely at Stone Gaia, prepared to strike. Stone Gaia smirks, telling the hero candidates they're underestimating him. He uses his magic again, summoning stones from the ground and flinging them at Miduji. Miduji nervously tries to dodge by running, but to his disbelief, the stones follow him everywhere. Miduji couldn't escape the stones and took a hit. Everyone screamed his name, worried, but Miduji just brushed it off, saying he was okay. What Stone Gaia didn't realize was that this was all a clever ruse. Midashuji was just buying time to distract him so Arashi Shunuki could sneak in for a surprise attack, and it paid off. Arashi Shunuki positioned himself right behind Stone Gaia and landed a powerful punch infused with his flames. Everyone held their breath in anticipation. Had Arashi Shuki just knocked out the Demon King? As the smoke cleared, it revealed that Arashi Shuki had actually hit a wall of dust and clay. Then the wall retaliated, punching Arashi Shunuki square in the stomach. He collapsed, knocked out cold. Stone Gaia merely chuckled, asking if that was all the heroes had. So what's next for Madushi, Shuji, and the rest? Can they defeat Stone Gaia, or is this the end? While they were battling one of the 4 heavenly kings, our main hero, Aragi Kai, finally arrived at the fallen city of Neutrat. They had to take a super secret route to avoid being spotted. Only a fire spell on a scepter lit their way as they delved deep beneath the city. Mayor somehow got convinced to trek through the city's super smelly sewers, pinching her nose the whole time. Kai, however, didn't mind the gross odor at all. Mayor admitted she never would have thought of sneaking into a city via the sewers. Kai just told her to hang tight. They'd be there shortly. They had to be wary of Demon's incredible night vision, especially since the city had so many exposed areas. Plus, Neutrat was a bustling city, which meant the security was going to be super strict. After a few more minutes of meandering through those stinky tunnels, they finally managed to escape. Just like that, the duo had slipped into Neutrat unnoticed, even if they did smell utterly terrible. As soon as they set foot in the actual city, Kai got a really uneasy feeling creeping in. His instincts told him someone was on their way, so they quickly dove into a barrel, totally reminiscent of a classic 90 Seconds cartoon. Moments later, 2 demon guards strolled down the street. One of them grumbled about being chosen to watch over the witch, but serving the witch wasn't about past achievements. The grumpy guard might have been reluctant about his role, but he clearly had the skills. That didn't spare him from getting yelled at by the witch, though. As the 2 demons wandered off, still whining about their bosses, Kai and Mayor emerged. Kai couldn't help but wonder what the fuss was about this witch. He knew she was supposed to be the demon princess and the new ruler of Neutrat City. Mayor recognized her as the Witch of Space, and she was their mission right now. Before all this, the sage had suggested Kai meet the Witch of Space in Neutrat. She might be the only one capable of making his wish come true. They were in the city, but reaching the princess required some serious strategizing to dodge a fight they wouldn't win. A pro assassin would collect intel quietly, and that was exactly Kai's plan. Mayor promised to keep a low profile and follow his lead to navigate through this situation. The fallen city was now officially a demon stronghold, a spot for them to regroup and plot their next attack. As they walked through the city, Kai and Mayor spotted demon soldiers just hanging out laughing with their friends. They were even getting tipsy in the middle of the day, acting just like humans and using abandoned houses for shelter. Kai and Mayor carefully took note of the city's current state. Mayor honestly found it pretty dull. She was expecting some excitement, but these demons were just living their everyday lives. Kai believed any rational species capable of conversation would live similarly to humans. But Neutrat wasn't as serene as it initially appeared. Soon enough, they spotted the former human residents. These folks were now slaves, forced to assist the demons with their daily chores and new homes. And let me tell you, the demons were not at all kind bosses. They'd pick up a stick and beat the human slaves just for kicks. This time, Mayor was taken aback by the brutality. It was an unfortunate expectation, though. Everyone knew demons often enslaved humans, so this level of cruelty wasn't really shocking. Mayor understood this basic truth, but witnessing it up close was still pretty unsettling. The casual beating of a slave quickly became a twisted game for the bored soldiers. Mayor couldn't just stand by and watch this madness unfold. Just as Kai reached out to calm her, a new presence suddenly appeared in the room. He couldn't ignore it. A sweet little voice asked if they weren't demons. A young girl with striking crimson eyes, a fancy outfit, and 2 dark horns stared at the intruders with curiosity. Kai completely lost it. His instincts flared up because he hadn't sensed this new person at all. He immediately pulled out a throwing knife ready to pounce. But the young girl reassured him that there was no reason to be alarmed. She wasn't there to fight. Kai wasn't buying it. He pressed the girl, eager to know who she was and how she found them. He was right there, and it should have been impossible for anyone to sneak past his senses, especially this close. Kai figured she must be using some kind of demonic power. She then confessed she'd been keeping an eye on them since they broke through her detection barrier. Mayor, however, was convinced they'd slipped in without a hitch. She hadn't felt a hint of mana around. But that's because the witch who mastered space magic could see absolutely everything. Kai finally pieced it together. He used his appraisal to confirm his suspicions. Her name was Isabel Dodora, favored by an evil god. A master of space magic, an expert in all sorts of demonic techniques, and a total powerhouse. Then Isabel formally introduced herself as the 5th princess of the Vidora demonic kingdom. Kai instinctively took a step back, clearly intimidated. She then made it clear that if they didn't answer her questions, she would simply instruct her army to seize them. After all, a human and an elf had snuck into her domain, and they didn't exactly look like spies. She wanted some transparency about their mission. Kai figured that fighting here would be way too dangerous, so peaceful negotiation was their best shot. So he began sharing his tale and warned the princess it would take a while. Isabel got cozy and encouraged Kai to share away since she was feeling a bit bored. He spent what felt like forever detailing his adventures thus far. At last, Isabel grasped why he was so determined to get back home. He had found out from a sage that there might be a chance with the help of some demonic space magic, and she confirmed that yes, it was totally doable to send Kai back home. This was a major breakthrough. After such a long time, he finally had a solid lead. He felt fortunate that the Space Witch was even willing to engage in conversation, especially since she didn't come off as your typical demon. She didn't harbor any hatred for humans at all. Isabel explained that to make it work, Kai would need the precise coordinates of his home world. The answer was right in front of them, but locating Earth's coordinates. Now that was a whole other headache. Without those exact coordinates among the endless worlds, sending Kai back would be impossible. A weighty silence enveloped them. Kai and Isabel exchanged glances, both sensing the gravity of the situation. Kai inquired if there was any chance to track down his home world's coordinates. Isabel replied that there were just way too many parallel worlds, making it incredibly difficult to pinpoint the correct one. Kai tapped into his new Eye of Truth ability and saw she was being honest. Isabel also pointed out that there were limits due to his mortal form. He came here protected by divine forces which couldn't be bypassed. Even Isabel's potent demonic magic was no match for his heavenly shield. It seemed God's will was keeping him trapped in this world. This meant he couldn't return home until his mission of defeating the Demon King was accomplished. Isabel had her doubts about that, though. She confessed she hadn't thought that far ahead. Kai didn't receive a straightforward answer, but at least he now knew there was another option if things got dicey. Still, the easiest route was clearly to take down the Demon King and complete the prophecy. Kai didn't vocalize it, but Isabel could read his mind through his expression. He was open to the idea of utilizing demonic magic for a way home, but it sounded incredibly challenging. Just then, Mir interrupted, questioning why the demon princess was being so agreeable. Isabel nonchalantly ripped a hole in space. She briefly explained that even the demonic realm has factions, and she was simply looking out for her own interests. Kai and Mayer instantly got ready for a battle, expecting her to make a move. Isabel just shot them a blank look, wished them well, and stepped into her dimensional rift. She also cautioned them that escaping her city wouldn't be a walk in the park. In a blink, the rift closed, and Isabel Vidora disappeared to who knows where. Mir, who had been holding her breath, finally exhaled. Kai was pondering just how powerful the Demon King's bloodline must be. If they had fought, they would have been wiped out without a chance. Thank goodness she wasn't aggressive. After such a fortunate escape, Kai feared that bad luck might be lurking around the corner. Just as Mayer warned him to stop jinxing them, the city alarms suddenly blared. The duo peered out the window. Demon soldiers were going bananas, searching for human spies who had snuck into the city. It was clear they had been found out, and that mischievous witch was likely behind it. First, the witch wished them luck, and then she wasted no time alerting her army about them. Her behavior was utterly bizarre, just like her. Kai had to accept that he simply couldn't wrap his head around someone so potent. They dashed across the rooftops of abandoned buildings, trying to escape the massive fallen city. Kai moved like lightning and Mir kept pace with him. Together they somehow managed to dodge thousands of demons. The demons were on high alert, scattered throughout the inner city. A quick glance showed that each soldier had impressive stats strong enough to cause serious trouble. They needed to flee quickly. But then Kai suddenly froze. Mayer had to brake sharply, nearly tumbling off the edge of the roof. Kai grabbed her and whispered for them to hide. They turned their gaze toward the city square. Kai sensed a mana signature just like the witch's and knew he had to investigate before moving forward. This unusual mana felt even more powerful in some respects. Then they saw him. A white-haired demon with porcelain skin and 3 horns stood right among his troops. He had 2 horns at his temples and a large green one in the center. Mir recognized this creature immediately. It was Wimberg. Kai certainly hadn't expected such a formidable wildcard to pop up here. Kai glanced at Mir. She was practically salivating with a fierce thirst for vengeance. So sticking with Kai really had been the right move. Without taking her eyes off him, she confirmed that the beast leading the army was Wimberg, the heavenly king of the winds, and a minion of the Demon King. From their hidden spot on the roof, Kai took a moment to observe him. Wimberg had well-rounded stats. He excelled in wind, demonic arts, and swordplay. Plus, his hawk's eye enhanced his battle power significantly. Kai nudged Mir's shoulder, urging her to chill. Taking him on directly would be downright crazy. Luckily, Mir managed to reel in her fiery rage, considering their foe was the heavenly king of the winds, and wind magic is super handy for locating things. They had to tread lightly. Down on the city streets, Wimberg's troops were uneasily questioning if there truly were intruders around. They had assembled an entire hunting party solely based on Wimberg's intuition, so they just kept advancing. If they stumbled upon any intruders, crushing them would be just part of the job. Humanity's ace, the hero candidates, had been spotted at the front lines. New City was under a lot of pressure to restore order. One soldier asked Wimberg why he was hanging back instead of joining the fight at the front. Wimberg casually replied that defending the base suited him just fine. Wimberg preferred letting other squads handle the messy battles, but the wind he spread across the city brought back murmurs, confirming that intruders were lurking. For Wimberg, if the wind said it, it was a done deal. Those spies were being careful, but they couldn't escape Wimberg's wind tracking. He commanded the wind, giving him an all-seeing map of the city. Wimberg instructed his troops to prepare the pursuit unit. It was hunt time. Wimberg realized the witch could have found these intruders way earlier. She must have let them slip through, which was rather intriguing to him. Meanwhile, Mayer and Kai were still racing for their lives, taking cover in old residential neighborhoods. As they reached a street corner, Kai told Mayer to halt. A demon search party was nearby, inspecting every nook and cranny for intruders. The demons likely sensed someone was around, but couldn't pinpoint their exact location. Mayer had also noticed the winds acting strangely for a while, making the spirits uneasy. It had to be that annoying wind search trying hard to sniff them out. She could mess with the wind using her spells, but that would definitely give away their position. They hadn't been spotted yet, so they needed to be clever to avoid being overwhelmed by demons. Demon soldiers patrolled the streets, their heads swiveling around. The duo stuck to lower ground to dodge the unusual wind. But it was only a matter of time before the army caught up with them. Just then, Mayer's fading energy led them to be discovered. Kai decided they had to use the city's buildings to their advantage. But for this plan, Mayer had to play the decoy. Without waiting for her approval, Kai leaped onto the rooftops, leaving Mayer alone on the streets. Mayer shouted below, but Kai motivated her with the promise of revenge. He made her realize that crying wouldn't do them any good now. As they separated, the demons set their sights on the elf girl. She seemed like an easy target, but they also sent some soldiers to track down the elusive Kai. Mayer finally halted and turned to cast a spell. She called upon fire spirits, channeling the power of a salamander which stopped the demons in their tracks. Before they could process what was happening, they were completely toasted. Of course, such a flashy spell attracted even more enemies. Mayer's position was unveiled, and demon battalions closed in quickly. Kai used this chaos to sneak behind the distracted battalion. From there, he started creating havoc, one careful slash at a time. The first demon fell, but the others in the battalion remained oblivious. With quick, precise cuts, Kai turned demons into mincemeat on the street. The battalion captain finally caught wind of the thudding sounds behind him and spun around. What he saw was his entire group decimated, lying in puddles of blood. That fleeting moment of terror was an easy opportunity for a skilled assassin. The captain called Kai a coward, but Kai simply wiped out the remainder of the battalion with another bloody splash. Meanwhile, Mayer was still battling in the streets. She unleashed Undine, a mighty water spell to overwhelm her foes. This water magic was super effective in the crowded area, slowing down the demon army's advance. Yet even as the raging water pushed them back, the demons kept trying to break through. Mayer knew she was merely stalling the inevitable. She had no choice, though, as these demons kept appearing out of nowhere. It felt like a lost cause until she noticed some odd splashes occurring at the back. One by one, demons started dropping from a concealed blade. This made things easier for Mayer, as she pushed back the now dwindling demon force with her water spell. A quick slice to the throat, and just like that, it was done. Who could be behind this? When one demon finally caught on to what was happening to his buddies, it was far too late. A throwing blade had already buried itself deep in his skull. He felt as if he had just encountered the Shinigami, the god of death himself. Kai swiftly cut through the trapped army, his body now splattered with their blood. Retrieving his blades, he gave Mayer a nod for being a great decoy and making his life so much easier. Mayer appreciated the compliment, but it didn't erase the fact that she had nearly met her end. The duo might have hidden their moves well, but Wimberg was definitely growing impatient. His army was itching to call for reinforcements, but Wimberg didn't think that was necessary. He believed that sending more demons would only lead to more losses for them, so Heavenly King Wimberg chose to handle the situation himself. Mayer and Kai were almost at the exit when a powerful gust of mana-infused wind struck them out of the blue. After a quick look around, homing wind missiles sped straight toward the duo. Mayer kept her cool and summoned Sylph, the spirit of wind, to intervene. Her spell halted the wind missiles right in their tracks. Kai readied himself for an even tougher battle. The true big boss had just arrived. Wimberg floated above, scanning the city and manipulating the wind however he pleased. He admitted that these intruders weren't just mere pests this time. Mayer glared at the man who had turned her life upside down, filled with pure rage. This was her chance to finally get her revenge. She had to seize it and act confidently. Luckily for them, she'd been prepping for this battle for a whole decade. As Wimberg hovered above surveying the battlefield, the duo drew their weapons, ready to take on the fight. Kai knew they couldn't outlast a heavenly king in an extended battle. Not mortals like them. They needed to win swiftly and go all out from the get-go, Mayer agreed. Her focus razor-sharp as she summoned Sylph, the wind spirit, once more. This time, the spell turned into deadly wind blades, a fierce wind spirit magic that locked onto Wimberg. The Heavenly King merely stared at the approaching attack, actually feeling insulted by how weak it appeared. Facing an opponent daring to use wind against him, The Wind Heavenly King himself was a rare occurrence. Wimberg thought they were either really bold or just downright foolish. With a quick thought, he canceled the wind blades, effortlessly overpowering them with his own powerful gusts. The blades couldn't even graze the wind barrier he had set up. They simply scattered into thin air. However, Kai spotted an opportunity. Wimberg had momentarily blocked his view, but it turned out that exploiting that wasn't going to be a walk in the park. As Kai attempted to rush the seemingly blind, Wimberg's sharp, solid wind missiles slammed into him, stopping him in his tracks. High above, Wimberg laughed, calling Kai out for attempting such a silly move. You see, Wimberg was a pro. He continually used wind search, which meant he never lost sight of anyone on the battlefield. So even if Kai tried to sneak into a blind spot, Wimberg would definitely notice him. This was the ultimate counter to Kai's slick assassination techniques. Good thing Kai wasn't in this battle alone. Mir was right there to back him up, raising her scepter. Mir began to prepare another one of her spells. Wimberg was getting ready to strike back when he noticed what the elf girl was up to. His wind search made him essentially omnipresent by perfectly controlling the flow of wind. But if Mir toyed with that flow, his wind search would completely fall apart. Wimberg couldn't shake the feeling that this elf girl somehow knew all the weak spots in his fighting style. Kai had pieced it together. Mir had likely spent her entire life plotting her revenge, which is why she knew exactly how to counter the Heavenly King. With the wind search all messed up, Kai sprang into action, trying to hide himself and get closer. Wimberg just thought it was incredibly arrogant that this human was attempting such basic tactics on him. Kai managed to reach him in the air, but Wimberg shot up even higher. He looked down at Kai, taunting him for even attempting to reach him when Wimberg completely ruled the skies. This just made things a whole lot tougher. That flying ability was just like Narumi's. Kai's brain short-circuited when Mir shouted for him to jump again, trusting his buddy. He did it. This time, a massive surge of wind magic gave his jump an epic boost, letting him soar into the sky. Wimberg totally flipped out. Using his foresight and weak point detection, Kai aimed for the perfect kill shot. In an instant, he saw a glimpse 1 second ahead. He saw Wimberg dodging to the side, and a weak spot appeared right in his throat. But just a heartbeat later, access to that weakness disappeared. Kai had never experienced anything like it. One moment he had the perfect shot, and the next, it vanished. Wimberg wasn't just standing by idly. He completely changed his fighting game when he drew his sword. It was a sleek, straight blade that gleamed green and shimmered with wind energy. He was super ticked that some random intruder made him pull his weapon at all. So there was Kai floating in the air, squaring off against a demon lord who clearly wanted him gone. Then a whirlwind of sword strikes came flying at him, and without his foresight, those attacks would have torn him apart. Even with his strong skills, the onslaught was just too swift to deal with. Turns out Wimberg was actually Hector's sword instructor. Hector, the demon Kai, defeated back in the mountains. But while Wimberg was busy trying to overpower Kai, he totally forgot about Mir. That slip almost cost him dearly. A massive boulder came crashing down, aiming straight for him. Kai seized that moment to retreat and devise their next move. Despite the overwhelming odds, both of them were dead set on taking down one of the 4 heavenly demon kings today. That giant boulder, even Wimberg's wicked wind darts, likely wouldn't have held it back. Mir definitely had a few tricks left to unveil. Kai was starting to notice the intense rage she was harboring, and Wimberg caught on, too. Wimberg quickly figured out that these intruders must have been responsible for Hector's demise. Mir hammered that point home by asking Wimberg how it felt to lose someone he loved. The demon just cackled menacingly before recognizing Mayer as the sole survivor from a village he had obliterated. Mir had spent a decade honing her spells non-stop, all in pursuit of justice for that terrible attack. Wimberg began to mock her, reminiscing about that day and detailing it in gruesome fashion. Mir never imagined this beast would even recall what happened to her hometown. But the demon took delight in the sound of elves screaming back then. He relished how they cared more about others than themselves, making it entertaining to see them plead for mercy. Their despairing faces were so beautiful to him. It practically gave him a rush. Enraged, the young elf snapped and charged forward. She would have barreled right in if Kai hadn't held her back, advising her never to fall for such obvious traps. Kai reminded her that he was counting on her spells, so she absolutely needed to stay calm and focused during the fight. Mir snapped back to reality, recalling this was a team adventure. Kai needed just a little more time to figure it all out. But Kai was the type of guy who'd do anything to win. It was just a matter of time. Wimberg was a super tough adversary, covering both close and long-range attacks that packed a punch. Wimberg realized this duo was uniquely challenging. Kai, the human, was even able to trade blows with him. The only explanation Wimberg could think of was that this mysterious guy had to be one of the hero candidates. Kai didn't deny it. Wimberg, the Heavenly King, was always on the lookout for the most powerful fighters from the enemy side, but he'd never even heard of Kai, making him a total wildcard. After mulling it over, Wimberg decided to play it safe. He aimed to stretch the battle out slowly, using his superior strength to wear down his opponent. Meanwhile, Kai's foresight skill was winding down with just 3 minutes left on the clock. If they couldn't wrap things up fast, their chances of winning would plummet. That's when Mir suddenly chimed in, urging Kai to hear her game plan. Kai stayed alert, listening carefully, as Mir quickly whispered her strategy to him. He finally agreed, but not without a cheeky jab. "Don't drag me down," he said, which was pretty funny since it was her plan anyway. Wimberg just watched them scheme, entertained and absolutely convinced he had already clinched the victory. But then Kai felt a fresh surge of energy, locking onto his target like a hungry predator. Wimberg flashed a cocky grin, welcoming Kai with open arms. The first step of their plan was straightforward: use wind magic to launch Kai high into the air. While he prepared for the next showdown, Mir would hang back on the ground. She summoned Norm the Earth Spirit to conjure a bunch of boulders under her command. Mir then directed her spell at the demon, sending the rocks soaring straight into the air. Wimberg, being a windmaster, easily blew the incoming rocks away without breaking a sweat. The plain boulders were sent soaring into the stratosphere, completely missing him. But that brief moment of distraction was just what Kai needed to make his move. Unfortunately, the demon's reflexes were lightning fast. The first part might have flopped, but Mir wasn't about to throw in the towel just yet. She quickly regained control of the blown-away boulders. They circled back, poised to hit Wimberg from behind. Wimberg could easily sidestep or just throw up a wind barrier to shield himself, so this shouldn't have been an issue. But Mir had a hunch he'd try to block with magic, so she called on Syl again, using her own wind power to mess with Wimberg's defenses. The boulders then crashed right through the incomplete wind barrier, aimed straight at Wimberg. The magical assault was not meant to cause massive damage. Its true aim was to open up Wimberg's defenses. With his precognitive skills and weak point detection, Kai quickly seized the chance during the distraction. Wimberg barely managed to lift his sword to block the incoming attack, but there was no underestimating Kai's incredible sword skills. In one fluid motion, blood splattered across New City. Wimberg had completely miscalculated. Kai wasn't aiming for a lethal blow to his heart. Instead, he targeted Wimberg's sword hand. With the perfect strategy, Kai now had a hold of Wimberg's own weapon. After snagging the lethal blade, Kai swiftly pulled back out of the demon's reach. The loss of his sword left Wimberg stunned, causing him to overlook the attack coming from behind. Boulders crashed into him from all directions with massive force, but the powerful Heavenly King remained unfazed, not even a scratch on him. They might have broken through his guard, but Wimberg was simply too resilient to take down easily. Mir was shocked. She thought their incredible combo attack would finally help her get her revenge. Kai, however, kept his focus on taking down his foe quickly. He recalled Mir's whispered advice: wind, demonic arts are weak against earth. She could also disrupt Wimberg's wind powers with her own. To defeat a demon like Wimberg, they needed a solid plan they could actually execute. But Kai revamped the plan. Now it was all about creating openings for him to strike, which he knew would work better. At least they had control of Wimberg's weapon. Mir was still puzzled, though. Wimberg was renowned for his top-notch wind magic, so losing a close combat weapon shouldn't really faze him. Wimberg understood this too, and Kai didn't even look like a swordsman in the first place. Wimberg licked his wound, which healed up super fast. He then launched more wind missiles at Kai, pressuring the assassin to use the stolen sword to deflect them. Kai seized this moment to get back in range, swinging the glowing blade. To Wimberg's surprise and irritation, he suddenly found it hard to keep up with Kai's relentless strikes. Every swing of the sword pushed Wimberg back further and further. Wimberg wasn't just any swordsman, he was incredible. Being pushed around by a human like this was totally wild. Mir spotted her chance and unleashed a wind spell, adding to the chaos. A simple gust of wind hit Wimberg's legs, instantly toppling him off balance. As the demon tumbled down, he saw Kai perfectly track his descent. Wimberg looked into the young man's crimson eyes, spotting his own sword raised high. Refusing to give in, Wimberg concentrated all his power into his middle horn. It became tough, thick, and veiny. Wind energy accumulated at its tip, forming a deadly wind blade aimed directly at Kai. But Wimberg was just a split second too slow. With a quick adjustment and flawless teamwork, the battle was already decided. The heavenly demon's head flew off, landing beside his lifeless body. Kai, in the meantime, landed nearby like a superhero. The moment he touched down, he ran out of mana and lost his foresight. Wimberg was still barely clinging to life. Even with his head detached, he never imagined he would go down like this. Before he finally perished, he asked Kai how he managed to move so oddly. Kai explained that he could mimic skills thanks to his copycat ability. He had literally copied Wimberg's whole fighting style just by watching him. Kai had no clue about swords, but he wasn't grumbling about his new ability. Wimberg thought Kai must have been touched by the god of creation. This power alone made him humanity's ace in the hole. Kai twisted the knife even deeper. He mentioned to Wimberg about copying powers after finishing off his disciple Hector. With his last breath, Wimberg cursed his disciple, calling him a fool for letting an enemy escape and grow stronger. Kai sat amidst the battlefield debris, mulling over their next steps. He now understood just how mighty one of the 4 heavenly kings really was. There were 3 more demons equally powerful, and the demon king was a whole lot stronger. Plus, the king had his own bloodline similar to Isabel working under him. Kai realized he stood no chance against the final boss at the moment and let out a sigh. He glanced up to see Mir making her way to Wimberg's lifeless body, her face blank. She inquired if it was over and he replied yes. Kai then asked her, curious about how it felt to finally have her revenge after all those years of plotting. Mir admitted she felt nothing at all. She had put everything on the line for this moment, yet no joy came. Just a sliver of relief, like a massive burden had been lifted. Wimberg was gone, but her parents and the villagers would never come back. She felt liberated from her past. Kai expressed his gratitude that Mir was by his side. Without her perfectly timed assistance, he would never have taken down Wimberg. Mir felt the same way. She'd trained for 10 years for this battle, but couldn't have succeeded without Kai's strength. She was truly appreciative of him. Even though it was a harsh form of revenge, he still helped her achieve her life's purpose. For Kai, their paths crossed at just the right moment. His assistance was no big deal to him. Mir was accustomed to Kai's laid-back demeanor, but she knew remaining with him was the right call. Had she stayed with the sage, she might have lost control. She would have dashed in recklessly and potentially perished for no reason. Her master likely understood that all along. With her mission complete, Kai asked Mir what her plans were next. She hadn't really mapped out that far. Feeling a bit aimless, Kai suggested she could take her time finding a new objective since elves live for ages. Mir corrected him. She was only half-elf, so her lifespan wasn't that long. For now, she simply wanted to stick with Kai. He asked if she was certain, reminding her that his mission was to defeat the Demon King. Mir was fully on board with that plan as well. She figured if the Demon King was out of the way, fewer people would endure what she had faced. Plus, she was ready to stay with Kai, come what may, even if he told her to leave. This time, Kai didn't push her away. Instead, he just laid out their next steps, gather as many clues as they could before enemy reinforcements showed up. Mir practically sparkled with delight, thrilled that Kai was okay with her tagging along. So the duo slipped out of Neutrat City, having just defeated one of the 4 heavenly demon kings. High above, a rift in space tore open, and there stood the witch Isabel. With a bored expression, the princess observed them vanish into the darkness. Isabel had to concede that Kai and Mir performed way better than she anticipated. She thought they might just escape, but they actually took down Wimberg. Her usually stoic facade finally broke into a grin. With these two on her side, her plans would unfold much more smoothly. After the fight in the new city, Kai and Mir headed for the wilds, steering clear of any demon patrols. They eventually found their way back to Albana's place, high up in the rugged mountains. The duo filled the sage in on everything. She was just relieved they both returned in one piece. However, eliminating a heavenly demon so swiftly completely blew her mind. When Mir began to voice her thoughts, the sage interrupted her. Alana already sensed what her student wished to share. She could feel Mir's yearning to continue following Kai, so she offered her blessing. The sage wished her well, not just as a friend, but possibly something even deeper. Once that was settled, Alana asked Kai if he'd caught wind of the front lines. Intrigued, he pressed the sage for information. It turns out Kai's classmates, the hero candidates, got absolutely annihilated. Upon hearing that Maidu and the others were defeated, Kai wondered whom they faced. Albana explained that reports indicated they clashed with Stone Gaia, the top executive of the Demon King's army and Heavenly King of Earth. Given he held the same title as Wimberg, he had to be ridiculously strong as well. Kai finally asked the crucial question, were there any losses? Fortunately, everyone managed to escape unscathed. Still, after such a major defeat, their spirits were at an all-time low. For now, Kai decided to simply sit back and see how things unfolded. With his new mission to take down the Demon King, he thought he could utilize his classmates to gradually weaken the army's strength. He might even be able to rally the whole class to tackle the remaining Heavenly Kings. Mir then inquired if the other hero candidates measured up to Kai's power. Honestly, Kai wasn't really certain. They had raw potential, but if they couldn't harness it properly, that strength was pretty much meaningless. Let's check in on the hero candidates back at Fort Truss. They settled in for the night, but the medical ward was overflowing. Soldiers were everywhere, all injured from the failed assault. Even the strongest hero candidates ended up quite battered. Maidu had injuries all over, and Hana was busy tending to him. He flashed her a small grin, reminding her not to overdo it. After all, her healing abilities weren't limitless. Hana was aware it was risky to heal everyone, but it was the only way she felt like she was contributing. So Maidu just sat back, allowing the healing light to work on his wounds. Just hours earlier, their attack on Stone Gaia had completely unraveled. If Hinrik hadn't shown up, they would have faced total annihilation right there. Maidu noticed how hurt everyone was, not just physically, but emotionally as well. Rina just stared at the ground, her gaze blank. Arashi concealed his face, embarrassed he couldn't do more. Maidu clenched his fist, consumed by sheer frustration. He saw their defeat by Stone Gua as his own doing. Maidu was convinced that their loss stemmed from his poor leadership. If he had just defeated the Heavenly King on his own, none of this chaos would have occurred. Over at Fort Arles, the demons were still standing strong. The place looked impossible to breach. High up on a watchtower, the commander, the Heavenly King of Earthstone Gaia, was just kicking back, enjoying the breeze. Meanwhile, Kai was stealthily observing the fort from afar, making sure not to be discovered. Kai's vision was seriously impressive. He could spot a still target from hundreds of feet away. Even Mayer, who was raised in the magical arts, was stunned by Kai's extraordinary sight. Kai didn't mind, though. Every time his appraisal ability leveled up, it just kept unlocking fresh powers. The elf girl was even beginning to raise an eyebrow at how conveniently beneficial his skills seemed. Back at their base camp, Kai managed to get a peek at Stone Gaia's intense statistics. The Heavenly King was an absolute powerhouse in demonic earth arts, a solid defensive tank who also had mad sword skills. Kai then revved up his enhanced appraisal and boom, he got a super detailed breakdown of the enemy's abilities. At level 4, his appraisal went way more in-depth, revealing all of Stone Gaia's skills, which was a fantastic bonus. But what he really wanted to experiment with was weak point detection. He aimed it at the super tough Heavenly Demon, but nothing popped up. That just meant Kai wasn't strong enough yet to identify any openings from that far off. Man, if every enemy had a weak point, things would be a breeze. All in all, Kai had a super detailed scouting report on Stone Gaia, right down to the demon's unique abilities. And with Mir's magical expertise, she could summon water spirits. That's crucial because Earth attribute users are naturally vulnerable to water, just like in Pokemon battles. But keep in mind, type advantage isn't everything. Every battle also hinges on the skills of the user. Stone Gaia might know a ton of Earth demonic arts, but they probably only perfected a few. Knowing Stone Gaia's specialty would allow Mir to exploit a weakness. Since they were already in the vicinity, checking out another Heavenly Demon's lair seemed like a smart idea. Back at Fort Truss, the hero candidates were still reeling from their heavy defeat. Midu felt the weight of it all the most. He couldn't help but wonder if Kai could have changed the tide, but Midu refused to depend on anyone but himself. For him, leaning on others felt like shying away from the hard work. Just as he was about to declare his determination into the night sky, his classmates showed up. They knew exactly how hard Midu could be on himself. Especially Rina, who understood their class representative always tried to shoulder every burden alone. Narumi quickly chimed in that Midu should lighten up and wipe that gloomy expression off his face, reminding him they hadn't reached the game over screen yet. One by one, his classmates reassured him this wasn't a battle he had to tackle solo. He asked them if they still believed in him as their leader, but that question was a bit silly. They all agreed they couldn't imagine a better leader. Narumi then voiced what everyone was thinking. Midu really needed to start leaning on his friends a bit more. After hearing their responses to their loss, he finally cracked a smile after what felt like ages. Narumi made it a point to mention how much stronger everyone had become, which meant Midu could finally take a break from shouldering everything alone. Just as their class wrapped up the heavy conversation, their reunion hit a high note when another group showed up. Arashi and his injured crew had gotten out of bed just to show they were ready to stand tall. The delinquent leader immediately gave Midu a hard time for looking so down. They ought to be strategizing for a rematch against that stone jerk, he announced. Everyone was totally taken aback that Arashi actually showed up to meet the whole class. He clicked his tongue, clearly annoyed that they couldn't wrap things up in one go. So now he was all set to hear Midu's orders to ensure they snatched victory from Stone Gaia. The other students were beyond excited to see Arashi finally joining forces with them. With a newfound spark igniting in his heart, Midu announced they would gear up for another round against the demon that had completely wiped the floor with them. Arashi definitely preferred this more fired-up version of Midu. While everyone else was having a blast, laughing and getting pumped together, Kaki remained quiet, watching from a distance. Even though she was happy her classmates had finally bonded, she couldn't shake off her worries, since they still lacked a solid plan to tackle Stone Gaia. But her concerns melted away the second she heard Kai calling her name. She turned and saw Kai hanging out by the stairs. He cautioned her to keep it down, saying he didn't want to attract any attention. Kaki quickly complied, covering her mouth to stifle her excited sounds. Kai had come to get the scoop on all that happened in the battle against the Heavenly King of Earth. He pressed Kaki for all the specifics about the demonic arts Stone Gaia had thrown at them. After Kaki provided him with an incredibly detailed rundown, Kai finally grasped Stone Gaia's fighting methods, especially how he wielded golems. He was convinced the demon's battle tactics heavily relied on that particular kind of dark magic, just as the mayor had predicted. However, when Kai mentioned another woman's name, Kaki felt her heart race. Kai didn't want to go into details, simply thanking her for the intel. Kaki nervously inquired if he would be helping the class this time. Kai pondered it, but recognizing everyone's determination, He didn't want to disrupt their growing team spirit, so Kai decided to follow his usual plan, working from the shadows and tackling the tough stuff that no one else saw. A few days after the human attack, Fort Arles enjoyed a short stretch of calm. Meanwhile, on the outskirts, the summoned hero candidates were secretly coming together, prepping for a second attack. They also welcomed back Yumi, a classmate who had stepped back after all the traumatic happenings. Yumi used to be part of Rina's group, and Rina was thrilled to have her back. With that, Kinoshita Yumi officially rejoined the upcoming Fort Arles expedition. Some classmates asked her what motivated her to jump back into the action. After taking a break, Yumi explained that she had heard everyone was facing difficulties and wanted to lend a hand to the class. They playfully called her a hero for her response. But deep down, Yumi was actually having second thoughts about the whole situation. Just 5 days earlier, she had been working around the clock as a waitress at a local inn, feeling completely drained every single day since starting the job. Then she walked into her room. Kai was just standing there, greeting her like barging into someone's personal space was the norm. Maybe it was due to her fatigue, but Kinoshita politely greeted him back at first. But then it hit her. There was an edgy teen in her room. That's when Kinoshita completely freaked out. It took her a while, but Yumi eventually calmed down. She asked Kai what he was doing there. Kai explained how tough things were for Midu and the rest of the class on the front lines. He told her they desperately needed Kinoshita's skills, the divine protection of water manipulation, to get out of their current pickle. That's also why he had stealthily slipped into her room. Even though Kinoshita had left the combatant group, Kai sensed something special in her. He believed she possessed the qualities necessary to return as a true fighter, thinking she secretly wanted to reunite with her friends. Leonora had been the one to scare her away. But that was no longer a problem. Kai's bullets had taken care of that witch. With Leonora gone, Kinoshita had every reason to unleash her full potential now. Time had also mended the ache in her heart. Turns out Kinoita was quite the clumsy waitress, always dropping plates everywhere. The truth was she had a strong urge to support Nagase and the others. She locked eyes with Kai and realized there was no use hiding it. She was really taken aback that a classmate was giving her this much attention. Kai quickly cleared the air, saying he was just on the lookout for a useful pawn. Kenosha chose to brush off that last comment. Instead, she questioned how he could even think about joining the combatant party when he was technically a wanted criminal. With his criminal past, Kai couldn't officially enlist in the Holy Kingdom's army. But serving as the group's shadow didn't require a perfect record. Just like that, Kai had another piece positioned on his game board. Kinoshita was super excited, ready to show that her power could really make a difference. Kaki, still keeping to herself, listened closely to everything. She had already heard Kai's entire strategy earlier, yet Kaki felt a bit nervous, wondering if Kinoshita's water power would truly be enough to break through the enemy's defenses. Since Kai wasn't actually fighting, it was up to the class to devise their own strategy. His only advice was to adapt to whatever came their way. Before heading out, Kai shot a message to Midu. He challenged Midu to show him just how much everyone had grown while he was away. Back at the edge of Fort Arles, Midu approached Kaki to double-check their strategy one last time. They really couldn't afford to lose again, so the group carefully discussed their plans, refining their approach. From afar, Mir and Kai observed and listened. She wondered if these kids could actually pull it off. Knowing that Kai had an even better plan swirling around in his head, he was simply taking a step back today because people don't grow if they are always told what to do. With the Demon King as their ultimate target, his classmates needed to step up and shine. They had the power, but they weren't great at harnessing their gifts. For this battle, Kai would only provide minimal assistance, tossing out hints every now and then. Still, what truly counts in combat is making your own choices. Meanwhile, the demon soldiers stationed at Fort Arles were already in position, manning their defenses. Thousands of human soldiers waving the flag of the Holy Kingdom stood at the front gate. Captain Amelia was taking the lead as the commander for this second assault. At her signal, the kingdom soldiers bravely charged into the demon-occupied base. The demons at the front lines just laughed, believing these humans hadn't learned a thing from their previous defeat. Amelia rallied her troops, urging them to carve a pathway for the hero candidates so they could do their job effectively. As for the demons, their orders were straightforward. Eliminate all invaders. The war soon spiraled into total pandemonium, but the hero candidates, undeterred, steadily advanced through the chaos. Midu could sense their ultimate foe lurking in the fort's tower. The heavenly king Stonegia wasn't one to shy away during a battle. He reveled in showing off his golden grills, taunting enemies from a distance. Midu could almost feel the demon beckoning them into his domain again, and he wanted to avoid disappointment a second time. After battling through countless demon foot soldiers, the hero candidates finally reached the gate and blew it up right away. Arashi's explosive skill was perfect for locked doors like this one. Inside, the team discovered the golem stone that Gaia had created earlier. Medu officially declared that their plan had kicked off with a newfound sense of seriousness. Hidden from prying eyes below, two figures observed the battle from a crack in the ceiling. It was Kai and Mare keeping a close watch on the action. Kai was eager to see just how far these kids had come since he left. The hero candidates quickly took their positions with Medu and Arashi leading the way. In front of them stood sturdy stone golems. Medu raised his glowing blade, officially launching their second attempt at the Stone GA raid. Rina worried that this fight could be overwhelming for Yumi, who had just returned to the combat team. Yumi appeared tense but pressed on. Mid-rush, she unleashed her divine power, flooding the field with a wave of water. With all that water, the golems were in a bind. Stone Gaia watched as a massive wave crashed over his troops. The battlefield had shifted in their favor, and Arashi dove into the fray fists first. Arashi's punches literally detonated perfect for those large, motionless foes. Midu's sword might not have been ideal, but he compensated for it. His raw power technique and talent were absolutely undeniable. All the other hero candidates also stepped up. They had clearly sharpened their skills significantly. They may seem like background players, but these extras had the chops to take down golems. That's what really counted in this showdown. After the first clash, each and every golem took a dive into the shallow pool below. Stone Gaia instantly funneled energy into his troop, trying to make them repair themselves, but the golem's soggy bits made it a no-go. This meant the hero candidate's plan was totally on track. Stonegwa didn't stress too much, though. He just felt a little miffed that these humans had a water user on their team, so he grabbed his gear and called on his remaining cannon fodder puppets. Up on the ceiling, Mayor and Kai were keeping a close eye on everything. Mayor was actually the genius behind this whole scheme. Mayor figured out that the rock joints were vulnerable to water damage, making the golems more challenging to command. As things started to swing in their favor, Midu shouted at his classmates to crank up the intensity. They had the upper hand now. Yumi was feeling incredibly confident and launched the next wave of strikes first. Yumi conjured up a massive wave that swept the leftover golems away. Narumi and the others quickly moved in closer. Up close, the golems were towering, looming over them, but the team was unbothered. They understood the winning strategy now. Stone Gaia actually smiled. He complimented their tactic of eliminating his minions first. And whoever devised such a clever plan, then he touched the ground and multiple magic circles sprang up around him. The Celestial King unleashed sharp boulders from those circles. He saw his minions as merely disposable pawns to eliminate weaker foes. Now Stonegwa was ready to reveal the true force of the earth. He sent the boulders hurling toward the hero candidates who froze in astonishment. Luckily, some of them were ready to fight back. Hashimoto swiftly wielded her telekinetic abilities, stopping the boulders from wiping out their group. Stone Gaia clearly didn't anticipate that his control over the boulders could be overpowered. Then Kaki jumped in, using her domination skill to halt the Heavenly Demon King from making another play. An ability like that was a total game changer. With Stone Gaia held down, Arashi charged in, ready for an explosive attack, but a hastily constructed mud wall blocked his path. The mud soaked up his explosion, preventing it from reaching its target. Once the explosion settled, it was just Arashi and Stone Gaia squaring off. Stone Gaia flashed a smirky grin, boasting that this level of power wouldn't be enough to break his defenses. Just then, Midu activated his instant movement, appearing right at Stone Gaia's side, setting up for a deadly sneak attack. His sword sparkled, lighting up the entire room. Stone Gua quickly drew his own sword and easily deflected the strike. Even while still under Kaki's control, Hashimoto decided to dive back in, hurling those telekinetically charged boulders right back at Stone Gaia. Narumi seized the moment, adding his wind manipulation to the strike. He crafted several wind lances, a major power-up from the single one he used earlier. Stone Gaia was now facing another explosive threat from the front, a skilled swordsman at his side, and projectiles flying in from all directions. Yet he still felt completely confident he would triumph. He then conjured a gigantic stone wall to push back the nearby fighters, creating a big gap. Yumi wouldn't let this opportunity pass by, not when they were so near to victory, so she unleashed yet another water attack. This water blast had enough pressure and energy to shatter the stone wall into pieces. Stone Gaia's invincible defense transformed into nothing but a wet mess on the floor. It turned out his material loses its toughness when soaked. Mine, however, functions in a completely different way. With a clear shot at Stone Gaia, Midu prepared for another round of assaults. Having Arashi by his side made this the best chance to deal some serious damage. The combined force of explosions and blades crashed into Stone Gaia, nearly sending him to the Shadow Realm right then and there. But the old demon was notorious for his resilience for a reason. Even with coordinated strikes hitting him from all angles, he was sure he could withstand it. Gaia's defenses were utterly crumbling. He had no option but to go all out. So, the Heavenly King decided to channel all his massive defensive power into one colossal attack. As Gaia's energy shook the ground, the hero candidates nearly lost their balance. But at that exact moment, Kai's sharp gaze spotted a significant weak point. He hurled a knife straight at the demon's forehead, piercing through its skull. Just like that, another heavenly demon bit the dust. Now that's what I call classic kill-stealing. Stone Gaia fought desperately to stay in the game, but it just wasn't meant to be. His massive body crashed down right before the amazed hero candidates. When they saw the giant boss finally take a tumble, the whole class erupted in celebration. They cheered loudly for Midu and Arashi, thinking these two heavy hitters had locked in their victory. But both fellas knew the truth. This victory wasn't theirs alone. They realized that someone else had swooped in at the very last moment. Arashi checked the demon's body and found a throwing knife slick with blood. He picked it up and instantly figured out who was behind it. Arashi wasn't pleased. He knew what went down, and it really got under his skin. Midu looked up and spotted the source of the knife, a tiny crack in the ceiling. He was now convinced that Kai was the one who made the final move. Arashi still couldn't tolerate that sneaky guy. Then Narumi came over to the so-called MVPs, sporting a huge, toothy grin. Midu awkwardly smiled and agreed they had won, but deep down he knew he wasn't the real hero here. Their initial plan, which relied on Yumi's water spells, was supposed to go perfectly. Being so close to Stone Gaia at the end, Midu felt that demon unleash a tremendous amount of mana. It dawned on him that their approach was practically child's play against that kind of power. That's why Kai had to jump in during such a critical moment. Hashimoto noticed Midu's sad face. Even after their victory, she encouraged him to join the others in celebrating. Midu wanted to spill the beans, but she didn't give him a chance. What was truly important was that one of the 4 heavenly kings had fallen. No matter how you slice it, that was an accomplishment worth celebrating. Midu was swept up by the cheering crowd of his classmates. He saw their joyful faces and victorious smiles, which made him appreciate the win. A win is a win, no matter how you slice it. But proud Arashi just couldn't smile and celebrate, knowing he hadn't earned the credit. His group, totally oblivious, just kept cheering for their champ. Arashi quickly told his friends to quiet down. He made it clear that he wasn't the one who took out the Demon King. One of Arashi's pals, who was close to the action, actually witnessed what happened, but he just assumed it was a last-minute steal. Still, the whole team worked together to corner the Heavenly King. Midu grabbed Stongua's head and climbed to the watchtower. He held it aloft for all to see, proclaiming that they had defeated the Heavenly King of Earth. He then commanded the demons to surrender in the name of their fallen commander's blood. The demons were instantly floored, dropping their weapons the moment they laid eyes on their master's severed head. Captain Amelia seized the moment, letting out a victorious cheer. This boosted the spirits of every human fighter on the battleground. Heinrich looked pretty rough around the edges, but he was just thrilled that the hero candidates pulled off the win. Soon after, humans reclaimed control of Fort Arles, a super crucial location. Meanwhile, Kai and Mir were still playing their sneaky game. Mir wondered how the humans pulled off the win since both armies seemed to be evenly matched. Kai explained that the Demon King's army really depended on its charismatic leaders. When a leader falls, their organized resistance crumbles. He pointed out this was exactly what went down when they took down Vimberg before. After Vimberg fell, not a single demon even followed them. Kai viewed this dependency as a significant weakness for the Demon King's troops. Mir then asked if Kai should have even landed the final blow, since his whole plan was to train and support his classmates from the shadows. Honestly, Kai didn't see that he had much choice. Stonega's transformation unleashed an overwhelming killing intent. If Kai hadn't stepped in, the entire class would have faced disaster. Plus, he was just doing his job as an assassin after all. He just hoped Midu and the others would understand. He might not show it, but he actually sounded quite protective of his friends. Quickly changing gears, Kai told her to just call him by his name. Mir was totally taken aback. The elf girl blushed fiercely and stumbled over her words. After catching her breath, she timidly asked if she could genuinely call him Kai. He said that level of familiarity was more than fine with him. Kai turned to see just how much Mare was blushing. She tried her hardest to act composed, but it didn't work in the slightest. With this, Kai had now taken down 2 of the 4 heavenly kings. That's half of the Demon King's top generals gone. But don't forget the Demon King also has descendants, and they're at least as tough as Isabel. So the journey to finally take down the Demon King is going to be quite a marathon. Now, let's hop over to a different spot where a beast-headed maiden is being chased by some shady folks. She was pretty banged up, covered in scratches and scrapes, but her spunky spirit was still shining bright. The demons pursuing her admired her boldness, but her body was clearly reaching its limits. Meanwhile, a young demon shared some big news with his underling. He finally snagged the princess. With her capture, the Beastmen Federation was totally doomed. A week after they took down the Heavenly King of Earth, Fort Eris became a human stronghold, and the whole kingdom was buzzing with good energy. The army's victory lifted everyone's spirits. Knights were pumped up and the hero candidates shot to fame. Seen as humanity's biggest hope, The king personally praised Medu, the class leader, for his fantastic efforts at Fort Arles. Medu received a big reward. He got promoted to a lord and became an official knight. But the moment he slipped out of the formal throne room, all he wanted was to relax and enjoy some tea with his friends. Hashimoto found it hilarious that their super brave leader was so nervous. Amelia gave him a bit of a ribbing too. Heinrich, on the other hand, totally understood. Medu wasn't exactly a pro at noble etiquette. Luckily, they gave him a quick crash course in manners before the title ceremony. It helped his meeting with the king go as smoothly as possible. Medu just didn't want to disrespect the king or make things awkward for his entire class. But Heinrich thought Medu was getting way too wrapped up in kingdom affairs. Now that he was an official knight, he'd have some serious responsibilities. Like it or not, Heinrich was well versed in noble society, making him the perfect mentor. Everyone knew the church actually held the real clout in the kingdom. In fact, Medusa's new knighthood was even decreed by the Pope himself. Speaking of that knighthood, Medidu was now officially at the helm of the 11th Knight Corps. This squad would be named the Heroes Corps, filled with hero candidates, essentially the mightiest raid force in the entire kingdom. Medu pondered whether his new title actually meant something, or if he was just becoming another pawn for the church. Heinrich mentioned that breaking down all the complex details about state power and authority would take ages, but either way, Medu was now on par with other captains, and that came with some heavy responsibilities. Over at the edge of the fort, Meyer and Kai teamed up with Kaki to get the scoop on the local gangs. Kaki pointed out that Medu was actually the one who pushed for a leadership role. Meyer thought it was just a well-deserved promotion, nothing more. But really, the kingdom wanted to turn Medu into a symbol for everyone. This also signaled that the kingdom had complete control over the hero candidates. Bottom line, this wasn't great news at all. Fortunately, Kai remained laser-focused on his main mission, getting back home. He couldn't shake the feeling that the kingdom and Leonora shared some similarities. Both viewed hero candidates as just expendable pieces. Before they parted ways, Kenzaki finally got the courage to ask who the elf girl was. Kai casually introduced Mir. Kaki took one look and instantly felt her best girl title was in jeopardy. Mir quickly clarified, saying she and Kai were just travel companions. But when someone asked Kaki the same question, she completely panicked. She tried to say she was Kai's friend, but Kai, blunt as ever, immediately shut that down. He said friend wasn't quite right. Collaborator fit much better. Kaki actually liked that title a bit more. Back in their old world, they hadn't really talked much. Anyway, Kai was aware the hero candidates were gunning for the Demon King, so he planned to operate in the shadows, just like he did with Stone Gaia. Kaki's new role was to be the messenger between him and the others. Before Kai headed off to his next spot, Kaki begged him to let her tag along. Kai sized her up, then quickly turned down her request, but deep down, he knew he needed her to keep tabs on the others. A lot of candidates weren't on board with his plans, so Kenzaki's dependability was super important. Kenzaki, putting on her best tsundere act, just accepted her role. She was also the only one who realized the class leader actually held a lot of respect for Kai. Kai just hoped Medu would make the right choices on his own. Medu's development was crucial for taking down the Demon King. But Kai had a whole plan brewing behind all this craziness. He knew for sure that battling the Demon King's army wouldn't be a solo gig. Sure, he and Mir took down Wimberg all on their own, but honestly, that victory was way too close for comfort. Kenzaki completely panicked when Kai casually brought up offing another Heavenly Demon King. Meyer's super upbeat rundown of how they took out the Heavenly King of the Wind didn't help Kaki's mood at all. Kaki felt no better after hearing that. The other hero candidates barely managed to hold their own against Stone Gaia, but Kai accomplished it with only 2 people. Kaki could also feel that there was something really extraordinary about Mir. She couldn't help but compare herself to the elf, knowing her own role against Stone Gaia didn't really measure up. Kai also revealed that there were way tougher foes out there than the 4 Heavenly Kings. At this point, confronting those super strong opponents would be impossible. Kaki's task was to keep a close eye on their classmates and the kingdom. Kai promised to stay in touch. She embraced her new role, and she was really determined to make it count for Kai. Before he took off, Kai shared his strategy to tackle the Demon King in his own way. Mir skipped off with him, happily waving goodbye to Kaki. That conversation lit a spark inside Kaki. She couldn't just be a background character. She needed to get stronger. Just after Stone Gaia was defeated, the Holy Kingdom's army launched a huge invasion into demon territory. The new hero corps really boosted the army's spirits. They pushed forward with all their strength, taking over one area after another. This allowed the Holy Kingdom to seize several forts near Urugano Mountain, finally freeing New City. This victory came about because 2 heavenly demon kings fell in such quick succession. Without Wimberg, the logistics mastermind of the Demon King, their forces were bound to fall apart. What the Holy Kingdom didn't catch on to was that Aragi Kai was the mastermind behind much of this. Once the campaign wrapped up, the hero candidates returned to the kingdom for a massive celebration. Narumi let loose drinking as much as he could. The victory feast thrown for them was a total blast. In this place, 15-year-olds are counted as adults and can drink. Hashimoto lectured Narumi about underage drinking before swiping some booze for herself. Midu laughed, but he wasn't having as much fun as the rest. He was still in his nighttime gear, showing he wasn't entirely at ease. Rina noticed his tension and urged him to relax. Even though they'd won a few, keen eyes saw that the demon army's command structure had completely collapsed. Midu still felt uncertain. The victory seemed way too effortless. He even wondered if it might be a trap. Rina chimed in, telling him he was being overly cautious and that the Demon King's army was just a bunch of fools. But Midu knew better. They only succeeded because Kai was working behind the scenes. Rina simply couldn't believe that the brooding Kai could pull off something so significant. This made Kaki feel frustrated, so she jumped in to defend him. She explained that while they fought on the front lines, Kai was busy tearing apart the enemy's rear defenses. Kaki pointed out that their victory was only possible because Kai defeated another heavenly king in the area, smashing the enemy's defenses. Some folks were still skeptical, but Midu knew she was speaking the truth. Narumi felt strange knowing they had such a powerful ally lurking in the shadows. Rina remained the most doubtful, outright refusing to accept that Kai could take down someone that powerful. Arashi got pulled into the conversation, mostly annoyed that these kids interrupted his chicken feast. Remembering the blade that finished off Stone Agaya, he just kept munching his food and avoided talking about Kai altogether. Hashimoto argued that even if Kai's actions were true, they still couldn't forgive him. Midu slowly drifted away from the pointless chat and asked Kaki where to find Kai. She wasn't sure exactly where he was, but she knew he was busy figuring out his own way to take down the Demon King. Speaking of Demon Kings, let's take a look at the western territory of New City, right in the heart of the Demon Kingdom. Deep within a dense forest, Kai found himself surrounded by orcs. He calmly waited for the brutes to make the first move, and they certainly did. Dodging attacks from these aggressive, simple-minded creatures was a walk in the park for him. When another orc tried to jump in, it got a nasty surprise of sand right in its eyes. The brute definitely didn't expect such a dirty tactic, taking the full blast of sand. Kai attempted to hit them with a thundershock spell, hoping to deal some damage, but he just wasn't skilled enough yet to pull it off completely. The spell fizzled out, leaving him wide open for a massive club swing, aimed right at his head. Things could have gone south quickly if someone else hadn't jumped in. Out of nowhere, a blazing wave of fire obliterated the entire orc squad in a flash. Even so, Kai was quick to reprimand Mayor for going overboard. She shot back, claiming that she wouldn't have jumped in if his thundershock hadn't flopped. Kai couldn't wrap his head around how tough magic could be, especially considering how much he had sharpened his mana control. Turns out Kai's natural element is thunder, which is super rare. It's speedy and powerful, but crazy challenging to master because it's just so unpredictable. Honestly, the fact that he could even conjure these spells was pretty much against the odds. If he just had one of those elemental divine protections, he would have been unstoppable by now. Still, he knew he had to keep honing his thunder skills during battles. Perhaps he flubbed the spell earlier because the orc in front of him distracted him. When you cast magic, you've got to have a super clear vision of the power you're wielding. That's also why magic usually isn't suited for close combat. It's just too tricky to concentrate. But Kai, he was different. He had to learn how to use magic even when he was up close with daggers right in the heat of battle. Kai realized he'd need wild new powers to take down the Demon King. That's why he was so grateful that she was there to lead him with her vast wisdom as the sage's apprentice. While Mar was busy acting all cute and timid, Kai suddenly felt something unwanted creeping nearby. Just like that, a brand new horde of orcs closed in from all sides. But for Kai, this was actually a great opportunity. With the entire orc tribe crashing the party, Kai suddenly had loads of targets to practice on. Moments later, the crowd swelled even more. This time it wasn't just orcs. A whole variety of beasts and demons appeared to jump into the fray. Grotesque monsters swarmed in from every direction, each one uglier than the last. Kai didn't care how many there were. All he wanted was to work on some thundershock practice. This time his spell did its thing, shooting thunder right into the enemy ranks. But aside from the initial zap and crackle, it didn't really pack a punch. Sure, it singed a bit of skin, but it wasn't nearly powerful enough to be a finishing blow. Still, he managed to use it in a real fight. Even if it didn't hit hard. An orc tried to sneak up on him from the side, but Kai effortlessly dodged to the side. He quickly climbed up into one of the trees, showing off some speed and precision the monsters had never witnessed. While they were stunned by his incredible moves from above, the monsters completely missed his hail of blades. Each dagger found its mark, taking down the orcs with one messy strike. Kai's daggers were his trusted weapon. They were infused with mana, and he launched them with phenomenal accuracy and force. Magic still needed a bit of work, though. While lost in thought, a massive white ape swooped down to ambush him from above. Big mistake. In no time, its blood was splattering everywhere. That ape was a quick kill, just a swift decapitation. Kai held onto a tree branch while still mulling things over. He spotted more trouble on the horizon. Flying monsters were now joining the battle. To handle them, he dropped back to the ground, biding his time. Then, with laser focus and precise strikes, he took out all the flying beasts. After that, Kai leaped back into the trees, using them to create some distance from the monsters. But just then, one clever beast used its brute strength to topple a tree. The sheer number of enemies was overwhelming. It was tricky to keep tabs on everything. Still, Kai remained completely calm. Deep within the throng of monsters, one creature stood out among the rest. It was a boss monster. Finally, Kai had the perfect test subject to try out some new techniques. He gripped his twin daggers tight, his sharp eyes already mapping out his next moves. Nearby, Mir was non-stop blasting away. She kept hurling destruction spells at the relentless waves of monsters. With her power, she seemed to thrive as long as her mana held out. Mir was really itching to break free from this trap. If they stayed much longer, they'd just end up worn out. Thankfully, Kai totally agreed. They began to retreat, but not before Kai left his mark, splattering the ground with monster blood. The duo dashed, going as fast and steady as they could. Not only were there tons of monsters, but their levels were also through the roof. That's what happens when you venture deep into demon territory. Demons can command low-level monsters, making this land perfect for them and them alone. The pair kept running until they hit a dead end, a cliff. From that cliff, they caught sight of the demonic kingdom sprawled out under the night sky. It was a wild, disconcerting sight, with strange-colored monsters lurking all around. About a week after that scouting adventure, things really heated up back in their kingdom. Riding high on their previous success, they kicked off another campaign to capture even more demonic land. They were feeling pretty confident after their last victory. But this time, a big surprise awaited them. As they traveled through the woods, their biggest issue wasn't demons, it was monsters. The monsters here were on a whole new level, both in numbers and strength. They'd never encountered anything like it before. While the hero candidates and knights were quickly getting stronger and could handle themselves, countless regular soldiers became sitting ducks. Amelia tried her best to shield her forces with clever formations, but they were simply outnumbered. Heinrich was the first to acknowledge it. They were absolutely outmatched by the demons, even though the demons hadn't even shown their faces yet. This led them to suspect that a powerful demon was lurking nearby, pulling the strings and commanding all the monsters. Medu had guessed right. A high-ranking demon was indeed orchestrating this complete chaos. Her name was Elsa, and she was determined to shatter humanity's military strength. She didn't care how many monsters fell. Her plan was straightforward. Once the human army was completely drained, the real demon assault would kick off, and that moment had arrived. The Demon King's main force advanced, and Medu immediately advised the commander to fall back. Commander Amelia swiftly realized they had been utterly outsmarted and outgunned. Their only hope now was to retreat safely. But this escape came at a heavy cost, with many soldiers perishing at the rear. Even the demons were taken aback. They hadn't anticipated the humans to be this weak. The demons had been cautious. Yet it only took this much to send the humans fleeing. The demon soldiers credited their clever leader Elsa for this victory. This massive triumph meant humanity would certainly think twice before attempting another invasion. They'd be way too scared of the demons' true power. Plus, the demons had just conquered the Beastmen Federation. This meant they could now entirely focus on fighting humans. The demon soldiers were absolutely positive they would win this war. Meanwhile, Mayor and Kai watched the entire clash silently from a safe distance. Mayor and Kai had collected intel about the Beastmen, and it was undeniably concerning. As the information junkie he was, Kai wanted to dig even deeper and learn more. Back on the human side, the Holy Kingdom's army sadly retreated to the nearest human settlement. Medics there worked tirelessly to treat all the injured soldiers. Meanwhile, the army leaders gathered to figure out what had gone wrong. They had successfully reclaimed all the human lands at the border, but the moment they tried to enter demon territory, they were utterly crushed. With the situation being this dire, they were eager for any clever ideas. The biggest challenge was how to combat the unending waves of monsters in the area. If they couldn't devise a way to stop them, pushing into enemy territory would just remain a distant dream. They were astonished that demons were utilizing such advanced skills and strategies. Previously, the Demon King's army fought without any real tactics, but now it seemed like they were taking humanity seriously. Medu believed they were facing a clever adversary, a high-ranking demon who was crafting and leading all these monster onslaughts. Scouting reports suggested they might be able to get through if they moved through the forest of monsters, but that was far tougher than it sounded. The forest was vast, and there were only a handful of paths through it. Moving an entire army through there seemed nearly impossible. A few knights suggested they should regroup for now and plan their next strategy. Even though they had liberated many territories, their recent expedition caused too many casualties. They knew they had only themselves to blame for pushing too far after reclaiming the lost lands. Once high morale was their only real advantage, but now that was entirely lost. Hashimoto then chimed in, reminding everyone that their primary target was still the Demon King. But if taking down the Demon King were easy, they wouldn't be stuck in this predicament. When asked for suggestions, Hashimoto proposed making their army even larger. The issue, that would only slow them down and cause even more losses. Gathering more soldiers wouldn't help. It would merely mean more injuries. So, Midu had a totally different thought. Instead of focusing on more numbers, they should train some super elite forces. Amelia quickly hopped on board with this idea. After all, the current team already had the very best fighters around. Training these elites would seriously amp up their chances of survival. Sure, it might take some time, but it was definitely the most practical way forward. The knights were all in favor, but Midu couldn't shake off a strange feeling of unease about this whole plan. The thing is, the kingdom's goals and the hero candidate's goals were totally at odds. Midu and his pals just wanted to take down the Demon King and go home, while the Holy Kingdom was more focused on sorting out its own issues. That's why the top knights were okay with just keeping things chill, scared to rock the boat. Hinrik noticed Midu's unease and encouraged him to voice his concerns. From what they discussed, it sounded like bringing down the Demon King would take ages, and they just couldn't wait that long. Amelia's own estimate suggested they'd need 2 years just to regain their strength. Sure, everyone was eager to defeat the Demon King as soon as possible, but they simply didn't have the power to do it right now. The knights seemed pretty content to just reclaim the lands humanity had lost. Midu got where they were coming from and realized that most had already made their decision. Still, he was anxious about his classmates. He knew many were just itching to go back home. Once the meeting wrapped up, Midu, Hashimoto, and Hinrik headed out. Heinrich, the noble captain, noticed Midu's distress, but he pointed out that Amelia's choices were all about what's best for the kingdom. To shake things up, they needed more influence, which they didn't have yet. Hinrik also warned Midu not to rush into anything. Though he said it bluntly, he really was just trying to look out for them. The captain asked Midu if he wanted to see his friends harmed. He explained that being hasty would lead to disaster. Plus, while the hero candidates were strong, they still had tons of room for improvement. It made way more sense for everyone to train hard and hone their skills for one final massive push. Everyone definitely wanted to return to their own world, but getting wiped out by demons was way worse than just training for a couple more years. Midu knew that all too well. If Hinrik hadn't saved them during their first fight with Stone Gaia, they'd all be history by now. And let's not forget the demon world preys on the weak, producing beings even tougher than the 4 heavenly kings. The kingdom was really counting on these hero candidates to beef up their strength. After finally grasping the bigger picture, Midu embraced the plan and briefed the team thoroughly. For him, his friends' lives always took precedence, no question about it. Midu totally solidified his determination to get much stronger. He vowed to bring everyone home safely, no matter how long it took. But when he informed the others they'd be in this new world longer than they anticipated, the reactions were pretty mixed. Everyone immediately wanted to know how long their absence would be, and Hashimoto, looking a bit uneasy, admitted it would be at least 2 years. Yeah, 2 years is a big chunk of time to train, but it was way better than just risking their lives for nothing. The one who absolutely despised this whole compromise was Arashi. The guy just kicked the table in front of him out of frustration. He wasn't on board with this plan at all. Nope. Even if they triumphed, Arashi argued lives might still be lost, but he insisted they only needed to take out the Demon Lord. He said anyone scared could just sit and wait. Midu shouted that he didn't want anyone to perish, which is why his plan was the best choice. Is greater than is greater than, is greater than is greater. Then Arashi lost his cool, stomped his foot, and charged at Midu, calling him a coward. He prepared to throw a punch, shouting, "Let me open your eyes, Midu, quickly," summoned his holy sword, activating shield mode, and created a protective barrier. The punch was blocked, but it still caused a massive explosion and significant damage. Smoke and dust filled the air. A voice echoed from within the cloud. "You think you can beat me with just that?" Midu continued, insisting they needed to take down the Demon Lord together, as they had already struggled against just one heavenly king. He believed it was best to train and upskill. Arashi, still holding his fist up, challenged, "You think you've won?" Chains appeared, binding them both, accompanied by Jin's voice, telling them to freeze. Both turned in surprise. Jin yelled at them to cool it, asking if they were trying to wreck the place. Castle. Midu pulled his hand away. "Oops, sorry, Kaki." Arashi strained against the chains and managed to break free, calling them irritating. Jin grumbled about how much energy he used crafting that Dominion spell. Arashi argued that they needed to build their strength through battles, since trials helped them grow quicker. He looked at Midu and asked if he got that. Murray stepped up, backing Midu's point. Rina chimed in, questioning whether it wouldn't be smarter to play it safe rather than risk being wiped out. Hiki pointed out that the world wasn't all that terrible, and Satoshi didn't want to be killed out of impatience. Carrie raised her hand a bit, showing her support for Arashi. Rina asked why that was. Carrie responded that, while she got Midu's perspective, she wanted to get home as soon as possible. Yumi noted that everyone was feeling the same way. Carrie's eyes filled with tears as she revealed she only had her sick mother waiting for her at home. She recalled her mother lying in bed, worried and all alone. Tao sided with Arashi too, explaining he took care of his little sister after their parents deserted them. He just wanted to return home to help her. Shiori hung her head. Admitting her reason wasn't quite as strong, but she knew her family must be anxious. She couldn't let them wait 2 more years. Hearing this, the others felt a wave of sadness. Midu, noticing their expressions, understood. Narumi boisterously declared that he had about 3 girlfriends waiting and also wanted to head back. Meyer commented on his audacity. Atsushi smiled, stating they would always stick by Arashi's side. Kina agreed, saying following Arashi was definitely the right move. Akira appeared uncertain, but he figured compared to Midu's doubt, he ought to trust Arashi's firm decision. Arashi turned back to them. Midu, they've said it already. Midu hung his head, lost for words, wondering what to do next. Arashi stepped forward confidently and proclaimed there was no need for any more discussion. He marched out the door, announcing he would go on his own. Anyone who was ready to die, come with me. Those supporting Arashi hastily followed. Carrie also turned to leave. Rina and Yumi tried to stop her, calling out her name. Carrie closed her eyes and decided to follow her heart, apologizing to Rina as she joined Arashi's group. The others who stayed behind watched them leave, worry etched on their faces. Murray asked Narumi why he wasn't going. He answered that they needed someone to stay as a liaison. Jean felt torn, wanting to follow Arashi for his grandfather's sake, but he remembered Shinju's advice to remain behind. Outside, Kai and Mir returned, standing before everyone. A voice shouted, "What do you want, you jerk?" The group that was preparing to leave instantly became restless upon seeing Kai. "Shinju, how dare you show up here?" Akira snapped at them not to cause any ruckus. Kai glanced over quietly. Arashi warned him, looking down and saying, "We don't have the time for you. If you're here without a solid reason, you're gonna pay." Kai replied earnestly, "You're right. I think I should come clean. I need to borrow your strength." Arashi was taken aback and asked. Before Kai appeared, he and Meyer had been outside eavesdropping. She turned and inquired, "Your classmates are arguing. Are they really all right?" Kai answered, "I can't say for sure, but their points are reasonable. Like Midas said, they can't handle this alone." On the flip side, the Holy Kingdom is taking too passive an approach. What Arashi mentioned about waiting 2 years is also true, but waiting can definitely be riskier. Mira prompted, "What would you do if you were in charge?" He raised his hand. "There are 3 strategies to change our current predicament. First, we need to change how the leaders of the Holy Kingdom think. We have to push them to change. As long as I can return to my world, nothing else matters. But I'm pretty sure Midu won't agree with this plan." Mira asked. "What's the second option?" Kai replied. "We'll take a page out of Arashi's book. Employ guerrilla tactics. Based on what we've learned, and as Isabel mentioned, the Demon Kingdom isn't unified. If we target their rear, we could spark a civil war. However, I'm unsure if Arashi can pull that off." Meyer, having witnessed his fiery nature, agreed. "So what's the third option?" Kai grinned. "We'll move based on what we know. We'll gather some additional info. If all goes well, we can recruit help from other factions. In the end, it'll compel the Demon Kingdom's army to act." Amidst a roaring fire, Kai sat with Arashi's group. Arashi frowned, questioning, "What in the world is the cat tribe?" Princess Kai replied. "She's the chief's daughter from the cat tribe, and it seems she's been captured. She's definitely one of the key figures in the beast tribe," he added. "That's what I learned after squeezing information out of a bunch of demons. So this info might actually be legit." The girls felt a shiver run down their spines at the mention of torture, thinking he sounded quite scary. Akira was left wondering about who he really was and how he ended up with a pistol. Ino spotted me Mayor and thought I was adorable. Arashi, still munching on some meat, continued. "That's why I asked, what exactly is this whole princess situation about? What does this have to do with the beastmen?" Atsushi chimed in, asking if they were just animals with ears and tails. Kinta burst out, eager to see them, exclaiming, "They must be so cute." Arashi shot back, "Come on guys, be quiet." Kai took a breath and said, "All right, let's discuss our plan. First, you know there's a nation of beastmen in the Southern Territory, right? The Grandana's Beastmen Federation." Kai confirmed. "It's a neutral nation." Arashi looked a bit skeptical. "You want us to ask for their help? They're just a bunch of demon-fearing scaredy cats," I interrupted. "Their soldiers are tougher than you think. Their physical skills and instincts are sharpened. They've successfully fought off the Demon Lord's army many times." Arashi wondered why they seemed to sit back. Then I smiled, explaining they just didn't have the power to wipe out the demon army, which mainly targets humans. Kai got to the main point. "If the Holy Kingdom and the Beastmen teamed up, it could totally happen." Akira spoke up. "Got it. So that's why we need the princess, Kari asked. All we need to do is rescue the princess and use her to negotiate, Kai answered. Basically, yes, I already have intel on their supply route. I want you guys to act as bait. He was serious. Just cause a ruckus while I stay hidden. Akira jumped in. I see where you're coming from, but why hasn't the Holy Kingdom tried to team up with the Federation? Kai exclaimed. Great question, Nanomiya, I responded. The Federation hates demons too, but humans have always looked down on beastmen and oppressed them. That's why the beastmen dislike humans. Carrie was concerned. So getting their collaboration will be super tough, right? Kai added. The cat tribe princess is captured. This situation actually works in our favor. Mir grinned. Beastmen are known for keeping their promises. Once we save her, we can negotiate. After laying out the plan, everyone fell quiet. Kai asked, Isn't it worth a shot? I'm sure none of you have any better ideas. Arashi got to his feet. You just showed up out of nowhere and made this big demand. You always act like you have all the answers. Chiao's voice reminded Arashi that his choice would impact us all. Arashi struggled for a moment, gritting his teeth, clearly frustrated with Kai. Everyone held their breath. Finally, he decided, Fine, we'll do it your way. Morning arrived and Kai's group, along with Arashi, began to move. Carrie spoke up. We've been heading south the whole time. Is this really okay? Kai replied. Yep, the Grandana's Federation is located south, and as for the demons, they're taking the prisoners north. Our target is the road that goes through the forest, located in the south of the Demon Kingdom's territory. We'll know exactly where they're heading. Akira added Esso. To be specific, we're sneaking into the Demon Kingdom. Is there a chance we'll get caught? Kai assured everyone. Don't worry, I've gathered intel on the routes. Though the paths may be tricky and there are music and snorts, quite a few monsters, Akira wondered if our carriage could make it through. Kai admitted there's also something important. If we face danger, we can use our abilities, right? Tomoko grinned. Absolutely. My divine protection is multi-dimensional space. She turned to Kai. It's been a while, but you still remember my divine protection, right? He acknowledged. Of course, your ability is quite unique. Tomoko seemed happy. Kai turned to Shinju, which appeared to be his alias. Have you been sneaking into the Demon Kingdom since that incident? He replied. Not exactly. I've been hunting for clues so we can get back home. Shiori immediately chimed in. So what's the outcome? Kai stated. We only have one way to defeat the Demon Lord. I've gathered all the key information. Akira mused. So the outcome is that the beast tribe princess was kidnapped. That totally sounds like Shinju. Arashi seemed restless. By the way, is it all right for us to be moving this slowly? Shouldn't we be planning a little raid? Kai nodded in agreement. You're spot on. We need to pick up the pace. Let's stash the luggage and the carriage. That night, the group opted to travel on foot. Arashi immediately noticed and yelled, Monsters, everyone get ready. They found themselves surrounded by some fierce night wolves. Right behind Shiori, a wolf pounced. Kai quickly stepped in to shield her. The wolf bit down on Kai's arm but only ended up breaking its teeth. Kai grinned. Sorry, but your bite can't penetrate my steel. He then threw a solid punch. Akari reminded everyone, we're all surrounded. Support members gather in the middle. Vanguard pushed them back. She used a support command to boost her teammates. Those ready for combat moved forward. Empowered, they swiftly took down the wolves. Kari, using her control skills, launched some vines and shouted, Stop! The ensnared wolf stumbled. Ino dashed in and delivered a finishing blow. Meanwhile, another wolf leaped towards Arashi. With his eraser move, he calmly reached out and grabbed it by the neck. Rubbish. You're nothing compared to me. He blasted it away with an explosion. The wolf turned into a charred mass. Arashi tossed it aside and asked if anyone was hurt. Kai watched and thought, everyone's holding their own. No need to fret. It's awesome that Eraser is stepping up as a leader. He then reminded everyone, if anyone gets injured, make sure to have Hano heal you. Kai sensed something approaching. Mayu, he called out. A sharp-toothed wolf lurked. It had appeared behind Arashi, startling him. There's still one more, Mayu shouted. Fire, salamander. A massive flame surged forward, turning the wolf to ashes. Atsushi was in awe of the firepower. Kina exclaimed, Wow, it's totally roasted. Isn't she way stronger than Naga? Arashi clicked his tongue. So unnecessary, that's Shinju's girlfriend. Hearing this, Mayu blushed and fiercely pointed at Kai, who's his girlfriend. He stayed cool. Just be a little thankful. She just saved you. Arashi gave him a skeptical look. Mayu stared intently at Kai, waiting. He walked away. I don't care about such little things, she shot back. This is not little. Atsushi sounded a bit envious. Kenta admired. I want to find a stunning girlfriend too. After the battle, the girls approached Mayu. Carrie waved. Hey, are you Mayu? Want to chat with us? Are you a sprite? Mayu looked at Kai for help, but he remained nonchalant. What are you looking at me for? Do what you like. She beamed and answered, "Sure." Kai felt a wave of relief seeing Mayu fit in. A bit later on a nearby cliff, Arashi, sitting down, asked, "Are you positive they'll pass through here? I don't want to wait here forever." Kai used his appraisal eye to glance below. He spotted small figures moving closer. "No worries, I see them." Akai tapped into his divine power to assess the demon army. He found 3 low-level demons, 15 mid-level demons, and even more in the carriages. Among them, only one level 36 demon. His name is Zaganda, 57 years old, a high-ranking demon. His stats are all in the A and B range. His skills include level 4 wind magic, level 2 demon fire magic, and level 2 demon enslavement magic. Arashi asked. "So a high-ranking demon is their leader, right?" Kai replied. "Most likely. Don't underestimate him. Even though he's not as tough as Stonegear, a high-ranking demon still packs a punch." Hearing that, Arashi frowned. "Leave him to me. If you try to get in my way, I'll take you out." Kai glanced over at him. "I intended to hand him over to you from the start. Our strategy is straightforward. First, Eraser will distract them with his explosive shot skill. Once their formation shatters, we'll surround them. Everyone else will pair up in teams of 3. Kai continued giving orders. "Inyo and Zanagi, you need to look after Hano." The two nodded in agreement. "Next, Owaki, your job is to find and assist the injured." Owaki replied, "Count on me, Mayu. You support everyone from the back." Eraser, your duty is to confront the high-ranking demon. While you're occupied, I'll sneak in and rescue the princess. Once she's safe, I'll give you the signal. Lastly, everyone else adapt to the situation. If things get dicey, you can retreat." Arashi looked confident. "No worries. Once I blow the leader's head off, the rest will scatter." Kai looked back at him. "All right, I'll let you handle the battle." Someone from the crowd chimed in. "Just so you know, we're here because you need our help," Kinta shouted in agreement. "Exactly. What's with the high and mighty attitude?" Atsushi pointed out accusingly. "Don't even think about ordering Arashi-san around." From behind, Arashi, fuming, shouted, "Shut it, you fools," and whacked their heads. He moved ahead. "Let's get a move on. We're following his plan." Meanwhile, Zaganda from the demon army was keeping an eye on things. One demon whined, "I'm worn out, boss." Since we left that duo's turf, Zaganda yelled, "We're almost there. Stay sharp." Then he thought I knew this would be tiresome. He closed his eyes for a moment. "Sitting on this horse for ages has made my back sore, but I can't show the soldiers that." A thought hit him. "That's it. I should go check on the girl prisoner." He called out to the soldiers, "I'm heading to see what she's up to. Keep a close watch." The soldiers figured the old guy wanted to sneak away for a breather. A beast woman was tied up and Princess Sina Zaganda plopped down by the door looking exhausted. "Finally, we've arrived." He rubbed his chin and glanced at Sina. "Princess, what do you think? We're nearly at the city where you'll be held captive. Your Federation soldiers can't come this far." Sina grumbled. "This carriage ride is ridiculously bumpy." He paused, taken aback, and cleared his throat. "But don't fret. If the Federation follows our orders, you'll be set free." Sina shook her head and said, "That's pointless. Once you've got me, the Federation won't back down." He smirked knowingly. "Seems like you're still not clued in on your situation." She held her ground. "If you think taking me will convince them, you're fooling yourself." Zaganda's eyes narrowed. "Watch your tongue." He yanked the front of her shirt and tore it, leaving Sina stunned. He stuck out his long, twisted tongue. "Let me have a taste of you," he said. "I'll show you your place." The princess's expression didn't waver. Zaganda reached out eagerly. Suddenly, a loud explosion went off outside. Startled, he pulled back the curtain. "What's happening?" a demon soldier shouted. "We're under attack." Human Zaganda felt a wave of concern. More explosions shook the carriage. He leaped onto his horse. Counterattack. Stay fearless. Both sides clashed fiercely. Atsushi and Kinta attacked with relentless vigor, while Kai and the others supported one another. Zaganda surveyed the battlefield anxiously. "Am I losing?" Arashi rolled his shoulders and stepped in front of him. "You're a high-ranking demon, right?" Zaganda summoned his weapon. "Who the hell are you?" Arashi clenched his fists, grinning. "I don't need to tell trash like you my name, but I'll spill the beans if you put on a little show for me." The jab infuriated Zaganda. He roared and lunged forward. "Shut up, you're nothing to me." He unleashed a fierce attack. Arashi leaped up, throwing a punch. Zaganda used his spear to block it. "You think you can take me down with that kind of firepower?" Arashi's face showed concern. Zaganda stabbed with his spear, forcing Arashi to jump back and maintain some distance. Arashi grimaced, thinking, he's formidable, but still not quite as powerful as that other guy. "I just need a little extra energy. My blast takes a lot of it. I can only unleash it 7 more times. If I overdo my divine power, my physical prowess will wane. I just need to find a gap and aim for his head or heart." He crouched down and placed his hand on the ground to set a trap. Meanwhile, Zaganda mused, "These warriors are human. They must have divine power. Could they be the legendary hero candidates?" He spun his spear. "If they're the ones who defeated Windbox and Stonegear, I've got to be extra cautious. How can they locate me so easily?" They must be plotting to rescue the Beast Tribe princess. Good thing I assigned guards to keep an eye on her. Zaganda's expression turned serious. I need to make a bold move. I have to take down their leader. He charged straight for Arashi. I'll end this battle with a single strike. Lightning thrust. The attack was sudden, but Arashi managed to evade it. Seeing his torn clothes, he was amazed by Zaganda's speed. Arashi focused intently on the demon. Zaganda urged his horse forward, right where Arashi wanted him. He grinned. Right into my minefield. Arashi unleashed a mind blast, creating a massive explosion that shocked Zaganda. What is this? The blast spooked his horse. Singed. Zaganda pondered. Is this a trap skill? Damn it. My vision is obstructed. As Arashi dashed forward, he thought Mind Blast is just a trap skill. But finally, I've made an opening. He appeared right behind Zaganda. His hand lit up in a fiery red glow. Now it's time to catch him off guard with a blast. But just before he could, Zaganda's eyes sparked with energy. There you are. Suddenly, a mighty gust of wind burst forth. Wind thrust. Arashi winced. He couldn't quite evade it. The thrust knocked him down. His teammates shouted his name. Arashi got back up, cradling his stomach. Ouch, that really stings. Everyone, let's stay focused on what's happening. Zaganda raised his voice. You can't even use your energy to protect yourself now. But still, he felt concerned. His instincts were as keen as a wild animal. I've figured out his fighting style. He can set explosive traps and detonate anything he touches. Zaganda stepped down with confidence. As long as I grip this spear tightly, victory is mine. Arashi, his expression resolute, thought to himself. I bet that's what you believe, isn't it? Zaganda extended his hand, continuing the wind thrust, forcing Arashi to dodge. He flashed a grin. This distance is just right. At this range, you won't be able to touch me, Arashi inquired. So, you've figured out my fighting style, Zaganda grinned. Of course, you're always on the move. Arashi raised his hand. Exactly. The one who's exposed is actually you. He unleashed his skill. Cannon blast. A beam of energy shot forth. Zaganda's eyes went wide. Arashi fed more energy into the blast. A massive explosion occurred, leaving a sizable crater. Zaganda lay still, blood trickling from his mouth. Arashi stood tall, his coat fluttering dramatically. Information popped up. Name Eraser Sunsuk. Age 17. Divine Protection. Explosive Blast Level. Divine Protection. Mind Blast Level 2. Divine Protection. Cannon Blast Level 2. Physical Strength Level 4. Mayu, watching from the sidelines, was amazed. Wow. He took down a high-ranking demon all by himself. The demon soldiers were thrown into chaos. Lord Zaganda is gone. Have we really lost Akira while attacking? Yelled. Eraser conquered a high-ranking demon. Let's keep this momentum going. He used support buffs. Everyone's weapons powered up, launching a full-scale assault, easily defeating the directionless demons. Kai, armed with 2 daggers, strode toward a carriage. This must be the one, right? He took a step forward and drew back the curtain. Inside sat Sina, her top torn open. The princess inquired, Human, are you here to rescue me? Kai glanced at her. I'm actually wondering the same thing. He pulled out a dagger and stepped closer, slicing through her ropes. She wiped her face and asked what his intentions were. He coldly responded, something the demons also desire. I plan to use you to fulfill my objective. Sina rubbed her wrists. How refreshingly honest of you. Kai replied nonchalantly, no reason to be dishonest. Or do you prefer hearing that we're here to save you? Sina dropped her hands. I can't. But if that's the case, do you think it's fair for me to fight you? In a heartbeat, her hand shifted into a demigod beast form, now adorned with fur and claws. Sina's gaze turned icy as she lunged at Kai. He reacted swiftly, jumping back. In her frenzy, Sina swiped at him with her sharp claws, but he evaded them skillfully. With weapon in hand, Kai acknowledged her speed. They clashed fiercely. This is the power of a beast person. Sina's relentless strikes were easily blocked. Eventually, he grew weary and yelled. Jolt bolts of lightning struck Sina and her eyes grew wide. She crashed face first into the ground. Kai pinned her down, thinking, just a basic lightning spell. Not incredibly strong, but super useful. Sina gritted her teeth. Gah. How can a human be this strong? Kai narrowed his eyes, finally realizing the gap in our strengths. You have 2 options. 1, restrain yourself and come with me. Or 2, obey my orders. Realizing she was outmatched, Sina relented. Fine. Going with a human is still better than a demon. The group, led by Arashi, found themselves with the upper hand. Monsters were strewn about. One remained, letting out a terrified roar, panting. Who are these people? There's no way I can win. They're beasts themselves. Arashi called out to Kiori Chinami, who quickly conjured a magic circle. Vines shimmered and wound around the monster's legs, bringing it down solidly. Arashi slowly approached, grasped its chin, and tightened his grip. Tell the demon lord this, he growled. We've got no issues with him. We'll blow his head off. Soon after everyone gathered, Arashi held up a chunk of meat. Their carriage was packed with food. Kina took a bite. Time for a feast today. Kaori felt a pang of guilt, as if they were robbing someone. The girl next to her chuckled. Meanwhile, Sina sat there hesitantly. Kai spoke up. What's the matter? Why aren't you eating? Even though Sina was drooling, she restrained herself. Is it really okay for me to eat? Arashi ripped off a big chunk. It's been ages since I've enjoyed a proper meal. Kai gulped some soup and shot a glance at Sina. We still need something from you. If you kick the bucket, we're in a bind, so go ahead and eat. Upon hearing this, Sina finally let loose, thanking them. After her first bite, her face lit up like heaven. So tasty. The girl next to her beamed with pride. Delicious, right? Hano's cooking is always top-notch. Hano blushed. Mayor asked, Your name is Sina, correct? How did those demons manage to snatch you up? Sina stayed quiet for a moment, then shared her tale. I bumped into the Demon Lord's army while I was out hunting in the woods. She vividly remembered the moment when she was deep inside the Federation's land. Usually demons wouldn't be lurking around there. Sina paused. Does that mean they were aware of my presence beforehand? Kai calmly pondered. Maybe they were planning to invade the Federation all along. Kidnapping you might have been one of their goals. Kaori questioned why. The girl beside her chimed in. Because they invaded the Holy Kingdom, maybe they want to take over the world, right? Sina nodded, confirming, that's exactly what the demons are plotting. But what do you humans want from me? Kai plainly stated. Their aim, we need you as our bargaining chip. We want to collaborate with the Federation to take down the Demon Lord, Sina asked. Take down the Demon Lord, are you for real? Arashi suddenly interjected. We have our reasons, he clarified. We can't return home until we defeat the Demon Lord. Sina finally grasped the situation. I get it. So you're the hero candidates. I heard that humans summoned you, Kai asked. So, what do you think if you genuinely help us? That would be a tremendous help, Sina nodded. I understand. I owe you for rescuing me. Kai casually splashed cold water on her, but we weren't really planning on saving you. Sina was surprised but didn't argue. Well, you did save me in a way, and you provided me with warm food. Sina made her perspective clear. Plus, to cleanse the demons within the Federation. I need backing from an outside source. This is just my hunch, Sina said, but I feel there's a spy among the high officials of the Federation. All right, that's a wrap for today. Now I want to hear from you. How would you rate this story on a scale from 0 to